Okay. As you know, I'm Councillor B. Kenny, and I currently am holding the appointment as Deputy Mayor of the municipality. Mayor Maloney has asked me to chair this evening's meeting while he recuperates for medical reasons. Mayor Maloney will probably be away for about 6 weeks, so I will be in this seat for a few more meetings anyway, but we wish him all the best, and I especially, John, if you're watching this, wish you a very speedy recovery. Thank you. We'll stand and ask Joel for national anthem. Thank you.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Car ton bras se porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. My pleasure indeed.
Thank you. The first order of business is a planning meeting. Mr. Aquilino. I need a motion to confirm the agenda. Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Bodner. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest on this particular topic? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good evening to you, members of council, staff, and those in attendance this evening. The purpose of this meeting is being held pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. It is considered an application that was submitted by Paul Furman, which is looking to change the zoning of lands that are owned by Mr. Furman at 1096 Colally Street East. I will give the details of the application when I present my planning and development report. First of all, the method of tonight's meeting was given in accordance with Section 34, subsection 12, 13, 14 of the Planning Act and Section 3 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. The explanation to be followed this evening, Deputy Mayor, is I will present the planning report. Then Mr. Furman, who is in attendance this evening, if he wishes, he can address council as well. Council then can ask questions for clarification to myself or Mr. Furman. We will then open the public. We will then open it up to members of the public if they wish to address council. I will then give a notice. I'll give clarification to what the notice of application will, when it will be back to council for consideration, and then I'll give an explanation of the future meetings that will make that decision by council. This time, Deputy Mayor, I'm going to go through a few slides that will give an indication what the application is for. The property you see there at 1096, it's legally described as part of Lot 20 in Concession 2. You will see where the property is located. You have Main Street East to the north, Lorraine Road to the west, Colally Street East to the south. There's an existing single detached dwelling on the property. This application first was brought forward to the Committee of Adjustment to sever off the surplus farm dwelling that you see fronting onto Colally Street East. That property, 2.5 acres approximately in size, would then be zoned to non-farm residential to recognize the dwelling on the new lot that the Committee of Adjustment gave provisional consent to. The remainder of the land to the north is approximately 75 acres in size, and that would be zoned to preclude residential development to an agricultural purposes only zone. What this drawing will show is that part one you'll see there is the actual property that the Committee of Adjustment allowed to be severed off. That is the part that's going to be rezoned to non-farm residents. Part two to the north is the property to be rezoned for no residential purpose in the future. And there's a photo of the actual surplus farm dwelling on the property. When this application was circulated, there were no comments that were received from the public. That notice went out on February 1st of this year. The poster notice was also placed on the property informing of tonight's meeting, as well as we placed an ad on our website informing of this meeting tonight. The agencies that did comment on the application was our building division indicated they had no objection. Canadian Agri-Power indicated no objection as well. The Ministry of Transportation indicated they had no objection, but there would be no new access given off of Main Street East. The city's engineering division commented they had no objection. However, if there were any new entrances from municipal roads, they would need a municipal consent permit. Some of the policies that affect this proposal this evening is the property that you see in blue here. It actually has two official plan designations, and I have to apologize. The public meeting report did not actually capture the second designation, which is urban residential. The other designation is agricultural. When I flip to the next slide, and if you can actually, you'll actually be able to see. Now, unfortunately, I can't move this around to actually show the arrow, but the shaded yellow to the east of Lorraine Road, that actually is within the city's urban area boundary. The land to the east of that is designated as agricultural. We know that urban residential lands permit all forms of residential development. We know that the lands that are designated as agricultural only support agricultural uses, in addition with single-family use as well. The zoning of the property, and this will give you another indication of the zoning. This heavy dashed line represents the urban area boundary. Lands to the west of that, you will see, are zoned residential development on the second half of the page. And you will see that the lands to the east of the heavy dashed line are zoned agricultural. I just want council to be aware that actually the property has two designations as well as two zonings on the property. That won't be an issue with respect to the Committee of Adjustment decision, but it's something that we will acknowledge in our draft bylaw when it comes back to council for consideration. Deputy Mayor, that does conclude my brief report. I hope I explained what the application proposes to do. And at this time, if I may, I would ask if Mr. Furman would like to address council if he chooses to.
I just like to thank you all for your time, and I have no comment.
Members of council, does anyone have any questions to myself?
Council, did you say?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Dan, I'm looking at this red line here that more or less gives us the description of that particular piece of property. Does that mean that the urban area that you showed us and that you show us on there, the urban area, sort of the light greenish color right by the road. If we follow this this particular one, is that going to become agricultural now that we change this, so that that whole section will become agricultural, and the only sections that won't be will be the top and the bottom of that?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, no. What we'll do, what you see,
Okay.
the yellow shaded will actually be rezoned. It will be kept zoned as residential development.
Okay.
That won't change because that's what it's presently zoned as. But the
Okay.
lands to the east, we will have that zoned as agricultural purposes only.
Okay.
And where that 2.5 acres that represents the single detached dwelling, that would be rezoned to non-farm residential.
Okay.
Because it's a newly created lot. Our zoning bylaw does not allow new lots unless it comes to council
Yeah.
as part of a zoning application.
Okay, it's just that this particular design showed that as part of that whole section, and I just thought maybe that's what we were doing with that. Okay, no problem, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I would like to read the following before we do allow the public an opportunity to speak, if there's anyone here to speak. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the city to the OMB. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to add that person as a party. This time, Deputy Mayor, I would like to ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to address council. Seeing there's none. If there is anyone from the public that would like to get a notice of tonight's meeting, there is a sign-in sheet at the back of the room. If you sign that, you will be ensured to receive a notice of council's decision. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw, you must make a written request to the city clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request to the notice of the passage will be given such notice. Again, if someone does sign that sheet, you will also get a notice of that. Deputy Mayor, this will conclude my public meeting tonight. This will be back to council for consideration at the earliest opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. Move for adjournment from the planning meeting. Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Butters. All in favor? Thank you. We'll now move on to the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole for today, and I'll call that meeting to order. Mover, Councillor Butters, Councillor Elliott, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any addendum items?
Thank you, none this evening.
Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda, Mover, Councillor Butters, and then Councillor Bodnar. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest, councillors? Seeing none. The next is the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of Whole held on January 25th. Mover, Councillor Doucette, and seconder Councillor Elliott. And then the special meeting of Committee of the Whole held on January 26th. Mover, Councillor Main, and seconder Councillor Butters. Thank you. Items requiring separate discussion. Councillors, I'll start to my right. Councillor Main, you have any items?
Number one.
Thank you. Councillor Butters. Thank you. Councillor Elliott. Any items? No? Councillor Doucette, yes?
Council, number one.
Any other items? Councillor Bodnar.
Item 6 and item 8.
And I'm going to pull item 3 as our Joanne Ferracholi is here, and I'd like her to speak to that item. Yes, Councillor Elliott will pull that for me, and seconder is Councillor Danch. Thank you. And the rest of the items, that's the items for separate discussion. Approval of the items not recurring separate discussion. Councillor Butters, Councillor Doucette. All in favor? Good. And regarding consideration of items, so we'll wait till those are pulled, Madam Chair? The other ones?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. There are no proclamations, right? Okay. Thank you. This evening we have a couple of presentations, and so I'd like to call to the podium, please. Janet St. Amand, Chief Executive Officer for the YMCA of Niagara. Terry Cease from the Volunteer Board of Directors. Ben McDermott, Sharon Schultz, Center Managers of the Port Colborne YMCA regarding the Port Colborne YMCA Year 3 Final Report and Year 4 Plan. It's on page 24 of your package. Or page 25, sorry. Thank you for coming. Just turn that little button on.
Okay. My name is Terry Cease. I'm a volunteer board member of the Y and chair of the YMCA of Niagara, and I'm pleased to be here once again, this time to present our Port Colborne YMCA annual report to the community. As a charitable organization who thrives to develop strong leaders, we have both Ben McDermott, our former Port Colborne YMCA Center Manager, and Sharon Schultz, our newest Center Manager for the Port Colborne YMCA, to join me at the podium here tonight. Our CEO, Janet St. Amand, is also available to answer questions should the need arise. As a lifelong resident of Port Colborne, I'm very pleased of the impact the long-term relationship between the City of Port Colborne and the YMCA has had on strengthening our community over the past 3 years. As many of you know, our multi-year service agreement was based on local market research from which we developed program and financial plans. Generally speaking, the YMCA has met and exceeded this plan based on the number of people served, volunteers developed, and donations received based on a fiscally responsible method of service or model of service. This is a positive impact story that we all should be proud of. Deputy Mayor Kenny, council members, members of the public, Ben, Sharon, and I would like to provide you with an overview of 3 items this evening. Number 1, the 3-year final report of actual service results and financial highlights, the Year 4 plan, and the YMCA capital plan. The detailed YMCA report has been included in your council packages. For clarification, the YMCA report and fiscal year begins in September and ends on August 31st, 2015, similar to the school year. So I'd like now to call Ben to the podium.
Thank you, Terry. And it's a pleasure to be back in Port Colborne this evening to speak to you about the continued success of our partnership and the positive impact it is having on the residents of this great community. Oops. There we go. To start, I'd like to share with you a story that speaks directly to the impact that the YMCA is having on individuals and families. This is an excerpt from a letter of support written by YMCA member Tasha Detler, whose kids, spouse, and mother benefit from a wide range of YMCA services. When speaking about her YMCA experience, says Tasha, the Port Colborne YMCA has had a very positive impact on my family. We, meaning Tasha, her husband, her 3 children, and her mother, have been members of the YMCA since it opened in February of 2013. My children participate in numerous activities, including child minding, preschool and youth programs, and swim lessons. These programs have allowed them to be more social with other children and to be more physically active. We've also seen great improvement in their swimming skills thanks to YMCA swimming lessons. What they have learned has helped to ease my mind over the summer when they swim in our backyard pool. While my children are being cared for by the wonderful YMCA staff team, my mother and I are able to attend various workout classes. These classes have allowed us to meet new friends, reconnect with old ones, and maintain a healthy and active lifestyle. We have many wonderful experiences together as a family at the YMCA. It has provided our entire family with a physical, mental, and a social outlet. And we look forward to continuing to support the YMCA Port Colborne for many years to come. And that's a wonderful testament to the great impact that we are having in building strong, healthy communities across the generations. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our partnership. It is my pleasure to be before Council tonight to share the highlights of our Year 3 final report with you. I want to first acknowledge our partnership and the multi-year operational agreement that was struck in June 2012 between the City of Port Colborne and the YMCA of Niagara that positioned the YMCA to provide a health and wellness experience catering to the unique needs of the Port Colborne community within the Valley Health and Wellness Centre. This unique partnership enabled the city to leverage YMCA expertise in serving the needs of citizens based on 156 years of charitable service in Niagara. The partnership has enabled the YMCA to fulfill its mission and strengthen the spirit, mind, and body of individuals through the provision of quality community services that are open to all. We have accomplished much together over the past 3+ years to be proud of, including designing a facility, nurturing a partnership, and opening and operating a great community asset. I also want to acknowledge the collaborative relationship between City and YMCA staff leaders at all levels. We appreciate collaborating with the City's on-site staff, including Harry Hakeem, Jennifer Bowman, Brian Thiel, Michelle Cuthbert, Paul Payton, Mike Grable, and Mike Audette, to ensure a positive experience for all participants, volunteers, and staff. Now to talk about our partnership success. So as Terry noted, I'd like to review 3 areas of the Port Colborne YMCA. The first being the Year 3 program and financial final report that begins in September 2014 and ending August 2015. Second, the capital report. And finally, the Year 4 plan. You have received the detailed YMCA report along with current program brochures as part of tonight's council package. And Sharon and I will highlight key items from the report, then welcome your questions and comments. First, I'd like to provide an overview of the YMCA's key areas of impact. Our Year 3 results clearly demonstrate how we are strengthening the community. We are building leaders, so volunteers have close to double over Year 3, totaling 99 people, contributing over 1,050 hours annually. Our Youth Action and Friday night drop-in programs have resulted in 926 visits by youth. Charitable gifts totaling $10,571 supports the annual Strong Kids campaign, ensuring that children from all income levels can benefit from a YMCA experience. And the YMCA has employed 68 staff, with 25% being full-time students, which is often their very first experience in the workforce. We are enhancing health and strengthening families with an average of 2,328 active members each month, 60% of our members joining as a family, 18% of our members receive financial assistance, 9,691 Y visits on the average month. That includes member services and other YMCA programs. 22 community groups, agencies, and schools participating in a YMCA experience. And I will also mention that 4,074 individuals were YMCA members throughout the year, which for a population of 18,400 means a 13.7% market penetration, which we feel is very strong for this population base. Okay. We are invested in the healthy development of children and adolescents, and they represent 49% of our YMCA membership in Port Colborne. Our YMCA Youth Leader Corps program helps to develop leadership skills, and children enjoyed 1,740 camper days at YMCA summer, March break, and holiday day camps. And finally, thousands more were involved in branch activities through Open Swim, Family Swim, Day Passes, YMCA Youth Action, YMCA birthday parties, the Ontario Early Years Centre, babysitting, and more. Also in our YMCA, we are working with 22 community agencies to extend our reach, including the District School Board of Niagara's Swim to Survive program, the Ontario Early Years Centre, which is operated by Port Cares for young children and their caregivers, the Special Olympics Aquatics program, Community Living Port Colborne and Wainfleet, Port Colborne Youth Basketball, and the Ontario Lung Association, to name a few. The YMCA is also a place of inclusiveness, open to everyone regardless of background or circumstance. Our YMCA financial assistance program is offered to individuals and families unable to afford to participate due to their financial circumstances. Assistance is offered in a confidential manner based on the individual circumstances, and at the end of August, 18% of our members were financially assisted by the YMCA. And this helps to demonstrate that the YMCA is meeting or exceeding its promise to service this community with a large volume of community access by both members and community participants. You have heard, and will hear more tonight, numbers this evening that demonstrate the success of our partnership. Outside of these numbers, there are countless stories that illustrate the intangible benefits of involvement in the Port Colborne YMCA. And involvement in recreation and leisure helps in leading a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit. And the YMCA is dedicated to building healthy, confident, and connected children, adults, families, and communities. And we also support older adults to age well. And every day, our impact is felt when an individual makes a healthy choice, when a mentor inspires a child, and when a community comes together for the common good. Slide 11 addresses our Year 3 results, and we are pleased to report that generally the YMCA has met or exceeded all targets for our Year 3. Including the Year 3 final report is, I'll just mention again that the Year 3 final report is covering September 2014 to August 2015 and is based on our Year 3 plan. Our total revenue and expenses are close to plan. Our membership numbers are fairly consistent. The on-roll average is 2,328, which is slightly lower than plan. And all of our programs are regularly evaluated to ensure quality and relevance. Okay. Our Year 3 has had an average monthly member on roll totaling 2,328 members and peaking at 2,531 members in March of 2015. This is aligned with the market research. And looking at visits to the YMCA, there has been a large volume of community access, totaling 116,296 visits, or about 9,691 visits per month. And this includes both non-member visits at 14,248 and YMCA member visits at 102,048. Also wanted to share with you that the first independent YMCA SAM 2.0 survey, and SAM standing for Serving Annual Members, or Serving All Members, was launched in Port Colborne in Year 3. And this survey measures YMCA Canada SAM standards across service, quality, and member experience. The survey provides feedback in 7 categories, including overall satisfaction, cleanliness, achievement of fitness goals, friendliness of staff, and program scheduling. Our survey results provide the basis to support our goal of continual improvement to YMCA experiences. And I'm very pleased to report that the Port Colborne YMCA received an overall SAM member satisfaction score of 87%, compared to the average Canadian YMCA score at 83%. More specifically, the Port Colborne YMCA celebration items include staff positive relations with members and staff support in helping members achieve their personal health goals. Action items that were identified to be improved are addressing member suggestions or concerns and enhancing children and family program offerings. This year, There was also a continued focus on child protection enhancements, including an external audit completed to ensure that YMCA child protection policies are keeping children, youth, and vulnerable adults safe while accessing the YMCA. Additional training was offered for all of our staff and volunteers to ensure they fully understand expectations around the duty to report and keeping program areas safe and secure, along with the ongoing monitoring of criminal reference checks and the vulnerable sector search process. Many of these quality and risk mitigation initiatives include a third-party assessment and leverage the YMCA Canada national systems. Also in year 3, the YMCA introduced a number of new program initiatives to better service the Port Colborne community. First, private swim lessons were introduced to offer families an option for children who prefer a more individualized approach to learning to swim rather than the group lessons that we typically offer. A dozen children participated in the private swim lessons to start, averaging 8 lessons each. Second, we experienced greater collaboration between the City of Port Colborne and YMCA staff in the pickleball program. And we were able to offer an additional day of pickleball and increase the number of participants in the program, which is very popular with older adults. And finally, the YMCA also continued to be involved in Canal Days and enhanced its role in the children's area, where the YMCA monitored activities and ensured that visitors had a great and safe experience. Year 3 also marked significant growth for our YMCA day camps in Port Colborne. Children enjoyed 1,737 camper days at YMCA summer, March break, and winter holiday day camps. This is an increase of over 30% from the previous year. This increase was seen in traditional YMCA day camp offerings such as Junior Explorers, Junior Soccer, and sports camps, as well as the addition of specialty camp offerings such as Mad Science and Out Trip camps. Also, there's been an increase in community groups and charities utilizing the YMCA program space, as I have previously mentioned. The Fitness for Breath program was launched in partnership with the Ontario Lung Association, and we expect that that will continue to grow in year 4. And in summary, we are meeting or exceeding our promise to serve the community in a manner that is both efficient and maintains quality standards. Okay, now I'm going to speak about our year 3 results from a financial perspective. The results of year 3 financials are based on the strong initial response to the YMCA in the partial year 2 period. YMCA service has seen a slight increase in day camp and youth action, while membership has seen a slight decrease. Member fee revenue is slightly below plan based on membership numbers, but the overall total revenue is better than plan. The YMCA charitable donations to our YMCA Strong Kids campaign is slightly higher than plan. And expenses show slightly higher than planned in wages and benefits that reflect the full year impact of a minimum wage increase of 7%, noting that staff efficiencies have seen a year-to-year reduction by $57,000 from year 2 to year 3 as this new operation stabilizes. The deferred capital depreciation was slightly underspent and includes an adjustment of early pool refurbishment costs into year 4. And the overall net is based on slightly less than the $300,000 operating service fund and is slightly under the year 3 plan by $2,232, primarily due to 2 items: staffing wages and benefit costs, as well as pool filter repairs. Year 3 was the second full 12-month cycle of operations, which will enable us to provide more accurate estimates for the year 4 plan in cleaning and maintenance. And the YMCA continues to demonstrate fiscal and program quality responsibility, with the year 4 financial results of revenue totaling $1.17 million, shows a total net variance of 0.2%. Therefore, the year 4 financial performance results in a net of $14,625, which will reduce the operating service fund in year 4 by the same amount to $285,375. got the numbers all straight
Okay.
there. So hopefully it makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, sorry, Ben, you're past your 10-minute presentation time.
Oh,
So do you, and I see you have about 3 slides left. So we
may I
kind of want,
request?
we kind of want to wrap it up, or you want him to continue? Council? Okay, all right. They're letting you continue.
Okay, so I'm going to invite now Sharon Schultz, our new center manager of the Port Colborne YMCA, to come forward and provide the report on the capital plan and year 4 plan.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for the extension. It's a privilege to provide leadership for the Port Colborne YMCA, and I look forward to working with this great team in 2016. I will speak first about the capital plan. To ensure safe, relevant facilities and equipment for all, the YMCA invests in capital. The deferred capital depreciation schedule in your report provides a 5-year estimate regarding capital costs. This includes initial YMCA capital investment in facility design and equipment totaling $1.1 million, interest and ongoing annual operating capital. The deferred capital depreciation continuity schedule is incorporated into the Port Colborne YMCA annual financial plan. The capital plan increases each year due to aging equipment and facilities. Year 4 and 5 will see some aquatic center refurbishment costs. Year 4 plan assumptions. Based on a conservative approach to planning, the Year 4 annual plan covering September 2015 to August 2016 will see a slight decline based on various categories of the numbers of members served. This projection takes into account the leveling out of new YMCA operations participation after the first 2 years of opening. This, along with the current membership mix at 48% child and youth, results in adjusted membership revenue. Expenses have also been adjusted due to reflect the Year 3 results, as well as October 2015 minimum wage increase. In addition, the Year 4 plan in future years will call for a planned increase in deferred capital depreciation of about $15,000 annually, as aquatic systems and equipment age require greater level of repair and replacements. As noted, details are outlined in the deferred capital depreciation schedule. The Year 4 program plan includes the expansion of personal training services to help members reach their fitness goals. Also being introduced is group fitness orientation for individuals looking to start a cardio or strength workout routine while allowing them to connect with other members with similar interests. This approach leverages the peer group connections, which is proven to enhance motivation to continue being active. Also in Year 4, a YMCA Child and Youth Program review will be conducted to ensure program and schedule relevancy and enhancements to better service family needs. The launch of an improved customer feedback process will also take place. Continued collaboration between the Y and the city includes the Y's increased role at Canal Days and options to provide enhanced city-related services at peak arena times. In summary, the YMCA is meeting or exceeding its promise to service the community in a manner that is both efficient and maintains quality standards. As we look into the future of our partnership, we envision continued collaboration, continued investment in resources, continued support in YMCA Strong Kids campaign, continued growth in leadership development and volunteers, continued support through financial assistance to access programs and services, continued community access to YMCA Day Camp, and continued program growth and development of programs including YMCA health management programs. Try to get through that fast for you guys. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. We welcome any comments and questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Sharon. Of the speakers that have presented, is there any questions from councillors? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. No question, just a comment. First of all, Sharon, welcome to Port Colborne.
Thank you.
Okay. I haven't been present lately, but I will be starting over again, and you'll be seeing me on a regular basis. Ben knows that for a fact. I'm sorry to see you go, Ben, and I'm sorry to have missed the last 4 or 5 months there, but it just had to be. But good luck. And I gather I've been told you're in Welland now? St. Catharines, that's even better. Okay, good for you. You're moving up in the chain. That's great. Ben was fantastic, and I expect, Sharon, you'll be fantastic as well. And let's keep going away. Let's keep going at it, because it is definitely serving the community well. And you're doing a good job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to further add to all of you. I was very impressed when I read the report to see the increase in volunteerism at the Y. That was fantastic reading for me, and I hope that continues, because it just shows that the community is behind you 100% as well, and that's a good thing. So once again, thank you. Anybody else have any comments? No? So once again, thank you very much to Terry and to Ben and to Sharon. Thanks very much, and I'm sure all of us we all have family members that attend, so that's a great thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Pearl Paul regarding the age-friendly needs assessment. She's the age-friendly needs assessment coordinator for the City of Port Colborne. How to get all that in?
Thank you. Okay, so there's a button. It's on, so I don't have to press it. Thank you. It's a tongue twister. I come bearing gifts. And you will find me to be less than formal in my presentation, so bear with me, it's my nature. So Honorable Deputy Mayor, esteemed councillors, esteemed staff members, and community members, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited about this project that the city has gotten grant funds for. In September, the City of Port Colborne Community Services, along with the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, was awarded $22,100 from the Ontario Senior Secretariat to do a needs assessment on the age friendliness of the City of Port Colborne. And I'm speaking on behalf of a couple of members who are representing our Seniors Advisory Committee here tonight. And we are really excited with this project because we think it will bring a lot of data to the City of Port Colborne that you'll be able to use in your planning. In your package, I presented information a bit about what we have as far as what the Seniors Advisory Committee has and the needs assessment. The grant tenure is going to last from September till June. The funding supports local governments and community organizations to undertake strategic planning with a focus on seniors and what their needs are. This project builds on what the Age-Friendly Needs Assessment of Niagara has done, and I think they have been in touch with you before. They'll be presenting to you where they're at in their project in March. Basically, we will be assessing what Port Colborne citizens feel about 8 categories what they consider age-friendly to cover, and that's public spaces and buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, respect and inclusion, civic participation, employment, communication, information, and health and community supports. The goal for doing this is to implement strategies and tactics that create a safe and healthy environment to enable community participation, personal health and wellness for aging community members. The Ontario Age-Friendly Strategies and Process assist communities in this planning process, and there are 4 stages to do that. First, they start out with step 1 of defining local principles, and you do that by having steering committees, which we have. The second step is to do needs assessment, and that's where our grant comes in. Their third step would to be create an action plan from there, and the fourth step would be to have an implementation strategy. Presently, there's tons of statistics out there showing the age population growth right now. You can see that in Port Colborne we have a high rate of senior citizens. We're the second in the Niagara Peninsula at 20% of our population being seniors, only second to Niagara-on-the-Lake at 25. By 2031, the population of seniors over 65 will have doubled. by 2017, there'll be more 65-year-olds than 15 and under in Ontario itself. So the steps for us to do the needs assessment are pretty simple. We're doing a survey, and that survey began on February 11th. It'll stay open until April 8th, so we can get feedback from our snowbirds. In the end of March, we're going to be doing focus groups for service providers and businesses, as well as city staff. And in the month of April, we'll be doing focus groups with senior citizens over age 55, as well as their caregivers. Data analysis will be put together probably during May. The report will be available at the end of June. And that report will be presented to you and council by the seniors committee themselves. The tenure of the grant ends on 26th of June. Basically, 60 cities in Ontario have done this. And for just a bit of FYI for you, these are some of the results that other cities have done through their needs assessment. London implemented an improved street sign strategy and changed all their signs so that aging seniors could read their signs better. They did countdown systems at their crosswalks, and they're now starting a check-in program for isolated seniors, all due for them doing the needs assessment. Hamilton started awareness workshops and information sessions to help their seniors with public transportation. Waterloo is working on their high curb issues due to the results of their needs assessment. Burlington is creating housing toolkits for their seniors to look at having sharing model homes. Dryden has a support system to keep seniors in their homes as well. The data that you'll get from the needs assessment will give you ideas on where to prioritize and what are some ways to make the city friendlier for older citizens. And the extended benefit from that is whatever benefits seniors will also benefit other citizens who have limiting abilities. I want you to think about place and how much our lives are important to us as far as where we live and our homes. Everything that happens to us too in our communities and our house are driven by our emotional core. As the citizens take the energy to actually fill out these needs assessments, do the surveys, and come to our focus groups, they give information in the palm of our hands to give to you in trust that there will be some action and some change. In the 11 days that the survey has been out, we've had 54 responses. Our objective is to have a 20 to 30 response rate. The standard is 10 to 12%. I'm here to take a call to action and invite everyone in the community as well as on the council and the city to step up and be involved into trying to get people to participate in the survey. By that, I've given you each a package with a survey of your own to fill out, a survey to give to someone else, and little information slips with information how people can take the survey on their own. So when you speak to your community members and when you speak to anyone who's having issues, pull out of your pocket a little piece of paper, say, here, take the survey, tell us what you really think. If there is any questions that I can answer on behalf of our team, please feel free to ask me. It was just a delight to let you know that the project is going well, and we thank you for all your support. The mayor jumped right in, called Friends of 55 and said, hey, we've got something going on, can I come over? We have a meeting with them right away. Administration and staff have been supportive of this process. Whatever we needed done, they were there to help right away. So I want to express a lot of gratitude for the enthusiasm and the hands-on help that we've received so far. And I look forward to participating with you in the future way you think you can help. It would be a welcome. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation, and I believe Councillor Mean has a question, and Councillor Bodnar, and Councillor Cassette. So we'll start with Councillor Mean.
I want to thank you so much for this presentation. What I wanted to know is, can this survey be done online?
It absolutely can.
Okay.
And in your information package is the little flyer. It'll give you the address to go online.
That's great, thanks.
It's available online. We will be sending members of the Senior Advisory Committee on March to key places in the city where they'll be handing out surveys and filling them out. And it's also in 4 locations at the city. So paper copies are at the library, the Valet Center, here at City Hall and in Roselawn, and definitely online.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to the presenter, are you reaching out to areas in Ward 4 like the Sherkston Community Center and the Bethel Community Center that have, activities going on that have senior involvement?
They are on my list, and we are starting to approach all of the community centers, all of the businesses and service clubs this week. So within the next 2 weeks, the end of February, the beginning of March, we'll be going out, knocking on doors, presenting our material, and trying to see what we can tag into.
Okay. Okay.
And if you want to support me in that effort, Councillor Bonner, I'd be pleased to go with you or take any connections you think that would help.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Desmarais couldn't make it this evening.
Yes.
And she's asked me to convey her feelings of thanks for everything that the committee is doing. And although she's a member of that, she believes very much in this. And I was a member of that committee in the last session as well. And I remember us talking about it and trying to see if we could get it. So I'm glad it's come to fruition, and we're meeting it, because we are definitely looking at an increase in seniors here in Port Colborne. And we're going to have more and more. More people like me who have been around for a long time and are not going anywhere for a while, we hope. And this will help us and help the city even. And once we get the results, the city itself can also change maybe some of the planning sessions that we have, and some of our strategic planning may change because of the numbers that we see and because of what they feel can be done. So she is indicating thank you, and so am I. And let's plug away at this. Ladies and gentlemen, fill out this survey. We need your opinions. That's critical.
Thank you. Out of all the cities in the Niagara Peninsula that applied to get this grant, which were 4, only Port Colborne has received it. And so it's not an easy grant to get, so the city needs to be commended and right up for the grant. There are some surveys at the back that anybody can take on their way out as well.
Great. I think we have a couple more questions. Councillor Elliott.
Elliott, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, Pearl. While you're here,
Yes, sir.
COGECO's on. A lot of seniors watch the replay of this. If you could tell them where they could take the survey online, and maybe we can get some help from the press to get that out. We might be able to get some more infiltration on the survey. Just tell us where they can take it online, and maybe where they can pick up the paper copies to fill out as well, because I know it's watched by several people that maybe can't make it out.
Thank you so much for that invitation. So if I have to look at the camera, we're really excited to hear your feedback. I think it's a rare opportunity for a city to ask every possible citizen to give what they feel is important and how their city is doing at providing services. So you can say what you feel by answering this questionnaire. There is a questionnaire online. So you would have to go to the city website under Community Services, look for the age-friendly page. The link is there. You can fill out a survey and paper copy at the Valet Health and Wellness Center, at Roselawn, at City Hall, and the Public Library. And look for drop-in spots, possibly at Portal Village, possibly through the drugstores. We may have some people putting up stations for you to answer surveys there.
Thanks, Thanks, Pearl. I think Councillor Butter has her hand up as well.
Thank you. There's actually an event coming up at the Bethel Church It's a dinner this Wednesday, so if you want to give me some extra copies, I'm happy to, give them out there. It's a ham and scalloped potato dinner. They do such a good job. And then the next event's at Sherkson Community Center. It's March 6th.
Okay.
So if you get a hold of Kathy Diplock and make sure she's got a bunch of them, I'm sure we could hand a bunch out at the chili cook-off, which is like amazing, for March 6th. So give me some and I'll take them with me on Wednesday.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. I appreciate all the help.
Great. Thanks very much for your presentation, and all those that are listening, please take the advice and pick up a form and fill it out, because it does help, and your voice does matter. So thank you. Thanks.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great. The next we have is Ellen Bellman, CEO of the Niagara Regional Housing, and Paul Grenier, Chair, Board of Directors, and they're going to provide us with an update on affordable housing in Niagara. Thank you. Welcome, Paul. Welcome, Ellen.
Here we have, are we ready? Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Sorry about the Welland reference there. We were called Vice Mayors. I'm not sure if that's about the title or behavior. So it's good, and I'm not sure about Councillor Doucette's crack about St. Catharines being better than Welland, but we'll move on. And anyway, thank you for the opportunity. The work and efforts of Niagara Regional House are very important to all communities throughout Niagara, and we've been going to all council meetings to highlight the activities here. So tonight, just an overview of the Niagara Regional Housing activities and some future plans, plus a snapshot of the NRH activities and work here in the city of Port Colborne. Just a quick overview of Niagara Regional Housing. In 2002, when there was struck to administer all the programs prescribed by statute with respect to housing, as well as manage the assets of public housing that existed in the past that were owned by the province. Currently, if you add it all together, there's about 8,000 houses or units under administration or contract, just under 2,800 that we own, several thousand, almost 4,000 from 66 nonprofit providers, and then the remainder from rent guarantee income supplements that we manage. And Niagara Regional Housing is a $57 million corporation. Our mission, are we there? There we go. To expand opportunities that make affordable housing an integral part of building healthy and sustainable communities in Niagara. And if I may, Madam Vice Mayor, just from your official plan, the vision there is to provide the opportunity for a mix of residential accommodations in Port Colborne, which can accommodate households with diverse social and economic characteristics and need. And I'm glad that that is in concert with our mission, because we all understand the need and the inherent right of social housing, the safety and security of housing, and how that brings in a better community for all of us to live in. And next, again, the strategic plan is there about empowering and obviously the true role of a regional government, which is, as I said before at a couple council meetings, Niagara Region is effectively a county on steroids. We have, our goal is to connect members of the communities and various communities together, and housing is an integral part of that. And again, from Port Colborne's own statement on strategic planning and policies for housing, if I may, the city will promote the development of an appropriate mix of housing types, densities, and tenures to meet the diverse needs in Port Colborne, taking into account current and future demographic characteristics, income level, special needs, and lifestyle considerations. And, the idea of the working also goes on to mention about working with other levels of government. We welcome that, particularly at Niagara Regional Housing. And of course, new developments are going to be planned to be, again, from your report, to be accessible, environmentally sustainable, walkable, encourage positive activities. And again, I'd like to tell you that today's social program housing is very different than what was built 40 and 50 years ago, and we are looking forward to the opportunity with working with the City of Port Colborne to make that a reality. And again, lastly, the makeup of the governance of the Board of Directors of the Niagara Regional Housing Corporation, 14 members. You have housing stakeholders with 5, community at large with 4 members, and 5 members of Regional Council, including myself, Councillors Petrowski, Volpatti, D'Angela, and Mayor Senzik from St. Catharines, and last term of council, Regional Councillor Barrick was one of those directors. Ellen has just celebrated her 1-year anniversary as the CEO, Niagara Regional Housing, and again, just with respect to the construct, works with the Board of Directors. Ellen comes from Perth County in the city of Stratford with a great wealth of experience over 30 years in social services and public housing, and she's going to walk you through a bit of the other things, and I'm going to come back to close it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us this evening. So we have a number of key services that are the core responsibilities of NRH. The first being the centralized waiting list, which is the Access to Housing Gateway. That's a legislative responsibility that began at the time of devolution to make sure that there was fair and equitable access. So it's based on a chronological wait list. We do have the provincial priority of families and individuals fleeing domestic violence, and then local priorities for urgent, which would be a health-related issue. So perhaps somebody who's had a stroke is on a 2-story walk-up and can no longer manage stairs. We need to make sure that they have an urgent place on the list to move to a ground floor or a unit with an elevator. And we also have a homelessness status that has to be verified and checked, and making sure that people who are truly without accommodation have a speedier access to housing. The other piece that we do is we manage, as Councillor said, that we manage almost 3,000 units that we are actually the landlords for, so we own and operate that asset that was transferred from the housing authorities, as everyone knew them back in the day. We also have legislative oversight of 66 social housing providers that are co-ops and not-for-profits. That piece of work that we do alone is a $21 million subsidy that we manage on behalf of those 66 providers. So we have the responsibility to flow those funds and that subsidy to them. We have the responsibility to provide oversight, direct management, to ensure that they are choosing and selecting people off the wait list appropriately for their vacancies, and that they're maintaining their appropriate balance of, they're required to have a mix of not rent geared to income, which is 30% maximum rent of a household's total gross income, and also a certain percentage of market rent to make their budgets work. They've been designed that way. So we're constantly monitoring that to make sure that we're giving the accurate subsidy levels, the vacancies are not getting out of hand, and also to ensure that they have appropriate capital assets. So on occasion, we do step in when we're providing oversight and have to provide leadership and guidance on the board. Sometimes boards are replaced with volunteers from the community when boards are having trouble. So there's a lot of responsibility involved with that oversight, and it should be. It's a big piece of our portfolio. It's over a third of our funding. The next piece that we do is the administration of social housing programs. So that's the programs like rent supplement programs where we work with private landlords in the community. The tenant would pay that 30% of their gross income. If that came to $300, but rent for the unit was $700, we would subsidize the difference. And it's a way of augmenting the stock, the limited scarce stock that we have, and making sure that we can maximize opportunities with private landlords. That's a program that works generally really well when there's a moderate to good vacancy rate in the community. It's much harder to operate that program when there is a very low vacancy rate, because of course then private landlords can work well with the private community. And we also have, since devolution, there's been a number of other programs that have been devolved, including some opportunities for new development, and we administer those programs whether we're doing the development or working with private developers through the funding programs. So our housing wait list, it's been in the news a lot in the fall. It's a hot topic. Our wait list at December was 4,636. We measured the wait list based on households. Some of those households are singles, some are couples with no dependents, and some are families. Many are seniors. and it's a mix, so we're constantly balancing the need with the available stock that we have, and as those units become available, choosing from the list and making sure that that's fair. So the Port Colborne waiting list specifically, in Port Colborne there's a total of 599 households that are waiting, have chosen and selected to move to Port Colborne if an opportunity arose. There's 190 seniors, 280 either single, non-senior or couples that have no dependents, and 129 families with dependents. So one of the things that we've been doing as we go to each community is highlighting how we measure, how that need is measured, and the sort of things they talk about in the housing industry. When we look at the StatsCan profile for the average after-tax income in 2010 for individuals in Port Colborne, the average income was $30,581 divided by 12 months makes a monthly income of $2,548. Private rents, we use the market. If you look at the list here, and I'm trying to see with my glasses, I'm sorry if I turn. If you look here, just to look at the private market, to give you an example, in the one bedroom. So the average monthly rents are $662, and that's a rough, that's an average. When we were applying the affordable market rent program, that program is all the program that for new development that has come since devolution. And the way it's designed is instead of being the 30% of income, it's just 80% of market rent. So those rents would be set at $530 regardless of what the RGI calculation would have been for the family. And then if you look at the RGI, which is the last column, the average income for families currently living in Port Colborne would be $381. So in our current RGI status. So it shows you the difference between, if the average we have is 381, it's a big difference between the 580 that would be the affordable housing component. And it's one of the things that you'll hear about if you're ever hearing in the news and what's being discussed about public housing and social housing is that the way they've changed the calculations moving forward and the fact that the federal government had started to withdraw from housing meant that these programs were no longer working in the traditional way to provide deepest need for the people that really need it the most. So that's a lot of what's being discussed and being challenged to address those differences and correct them. So in Port Colborne, I'm happy to say that we have family units. We have 5 units that are 2- and 3-bedroom units. In the seniors apartment building, we have 83 units that are 1 bedroom and 88 public housing units in total in Port Colborne. And then we have cooperative and not-for-profits. The pictures shown here are of 106 Saturn Crescent in Port Colborne. It's Port Colborne Cooperative Homes, and South Niagara Gateway Family Homes not-for-profit apartments. So there's 109 of the social housing units. Also great news is that there's been a total of just over $3 million that's been invested in Port Colborne to create 35 units of affordable housing. So that would have been housing built post-2006 with new schemes for funding and development that have come from the federal and provincial government. And they're located at the Fielding Apartments, it's Community Living Port Colborne, and Rapai Place with Gateway Residences. So the social housing programs, we talk about it in general, but we don't often talk about specifically what the programs are. There's a number of programs that make up the portfolio. So we have housing allowance. We use our housing allowance dollars that we're currently receiving through the Investment in Affordable Housing, or IH, and we help families who are on the wait list. So it's a long wait, as you know, and it can be quite difficult because while people are waiting for their RGI unit on that list, they're paying market rent somewhere, or they're living in substandard units. The housing allowance is that bit that helps them get over the crunch while they're waiting. We don't have enough to provide every household that's on the list, but it helps go a long way, and certainly the folks that are able to receive it are very grateful. And then we have Housing First dollars. Housing First is a specific kind of program that provides intensive supports to people that have been having
precarious and difficult, repetitive homelessness. So people with lots of other social issues that are really impacting their ability to secure and maintain their housing. And in Canada, we don't want to see people on the streets. We don't want people living in parks. So this kind of program is a way to really wrap supports around somebody when they need it the most and try and stabilize that shelter for them. Niagara Renovates is a great program. The Niagara Renovates program is an opportunity for funding for households who need renovation projects on their home, either to make them accessible. So again, somebody has aged or has had an accident or some other reason that they're no longer able to safely maneuver through their home, or the fact that they've just simply not been able to afford major repairs that would make the house unsafe to live in. So it's a much better way to ensure that people can stay in the program. It's a forgivable loan after 15 years. And so as long as it's not the kind of project that we would fund if we thought it would only extend the life of the building for a year or two. It has to give some extension to the ability to live in the home longer. And it is forgivable after the 15-year period. It helps people stay, often for people with disabilities or for seniors. It allows them to live independently much longer than they would if they weren't able to get those renovations to the home. And so it's a much, for the taxpayer, it's better because it keeps people out of long-term care facilities and the excessive cost of that when they don't need to be. So if it's a matter of putting $10,000 in to create some accessibility versus what it would cost in long-term care, it's a definite win-win for everyone. And the rent supplement program, I already explained, where we pay the difference between market rent and a calculated rent. And Welcome Home Niagara. And since 2007, there's been 14 Welcome Home Niagara grants. That's down payment opportunities for people buying their first home. So there are limits, income limits, and price limits on the houses. But for many people entering into the private market or the home ownership market, it's that stumbling block of the down payment. They could maintain the monthly payments. They would be awesome homeowners. They would be really conscientious and look after their home, but it's just that one step that they can't get into the home. And often people ask, why would we be worried about home ownership? But it is, all of these programs are designed to create some stimulus in the rental market. So the intent is that we're building new units, we're renovating buildings that were never rental units and creating new units. We are stimulating people to be able to stay in their home longer so that they're not moving into either other rental units or long-term care, as I said. And also, if people are moving into their first home, then they're exiting the rental market and freeing up units now that other people can access. So it's a way, it's all designed to be a stimulus program. And the Housing Action Plan. So there's a Housing and Homelessness Action Plan for each of the 47 service managers across the province. It's a 10-year plan that's legislated and required for everyone to have. They're required to be created in partnership with community providers and stakeholders. And it's to look at the system holistically and look at what is really needed for the community to make a difference in housing. Where are the gaps? What are the biggest issues? And each community is different, of course. So it's a way of taking local needs and making local plans and funneling funding and resources towards those. So the Housing and Homelessness Action Plan has 4 key priorities of improving options for people to access housing, to expand supports to help the people find and retain their homes, to increase opportunities and options across the full continuum of housing needs, and to improve the effectiveness of the current housing system now and into the future. So challenges, they're all the things you can imagine. We have a very different picture of the clientele in housing and support services than 20 years ago. Definitely different than 30 years ago. And you see a direct correlation between when the government started to close long-term psychiatric care hospitals and move people back into the community. So there's one element that's wonderful. We don't want to be like Bedlam in the Middle Ages where you could just lock someone away and that was the end of it. We know that that's not the way to work with people who are facing challenges. But the money did not follow people into the community. That's where the problems have started. that all of that money that was flowing into psychiatric hospitals did not follow equitably into the community. So there's less money to support people in the communities now, and that's what we're seeing every year. That just gets more exacerbated and gets more difficult. And of course, we haven't had a lot of new money to provide and build new stock, and the federal funding has continued to decrease. So there's been lots of compounding factors that have are bringing things to a head right across the province. Canada is the only developed country without a pan-national housing agenda and funding, stable funding. So family breakdowns, victims of violence, hoarding behaviors is another growing and challenging problem. It's a mental health challenge, and that's why we're seeing more of it. Bed bugs, of course, they seem to go hand in hand sometimes. Aging facilities, capital deficits, end of operating agreements. So end of operating agreements are a big issue. We have some small federal providers out there, some not so small, and they were designed and they have subsidy for a certain number of their units. So we have one coming up in June 30th. They have 34 current units that have been funded for 35 or 40 years. And the minute that end of operating agreement is when their debenture or mortgage is paid off. No more federal subsidy for those 34 units. No more federal subsidy. So, as that's been decreasing, the municipal portion has been increasing to keep those levels of subsidy. Now we're working with all those providers, and that's going to continue to grow and grow each year to get them to keep the 34 units in the portfolio. Because they think, and many of them do, they think, well, our end of operating agreement is here. We've made our obligation. The ministries met their obligation. We've met ours. Now we're going to turn those into condos or turn them into full market rents and do what we want. And so we're working really hard right now as we move. That's going to accelerate, and more of those providers are coming due in the next 5 years. We want to be prepared to be growing our rent supplement budget so that we can continue to negotiate and have subsidies for those units. It's particularly where there's in-situ tenants currently. So we address these by planning and collaboration, all the challenges we see. We work very closely with partners. We have dozens of partners that we have arrangements with that do programming on site in different units. The family programming that happens in the family centers, and then we have lots of seniors programming and lots of supports coming in to help seniors in our buildings. We do all of that all the time. We're looking at innovative financing options and rationalizing our properties. That's all work that's happening now. And I wasn't sure if you wanted to speak again.
We'll keep going.
Okay. So the innovations we're working on right now is that investment in affordable housing money. That's the money that's funding the home ownership, the Ontario Renovates, the new development, the rental stimulus programs, and the housing allowance for people on the wait list. We have recently, in 2014, opened Fitch Street in Welland. We just received our LEED certification at Christmas time, which is our high energy efficiency, so we're very proud about achieving that. And of course, we're working at Housing First to really start to address the most vulnerable citizens that we have. So coming in the next couple of years, we have funding that's coming through the IEH program. 75% of that funding there is IEH dollars. We have to match 25%, which we've been saving in reserves to be able to build new units under the affordable housing program. So right now, that's what we're looking at. How can we absolutely maximize those dollars to build the most units, to get the most people off the wait list, and to regenerate the program. So now we have a video here. It's about 3 minutes. Do we have
time? Ready. You want to go to question?
How do I don't know if I can. Do I click no?
It'll be on your website. I don't think we can make it work.
Well, usually if there's a link, does anybody have access to this? Okay.
Can you try it?
Make magic.
There we go.
Fast.
This is about Fitch Street, so it just explains some of the new development principles.
Niagara Regional Housing is excited to announce their first new design-build construction to enhance the lives of seniors in Welland. With provincial and federal funding available, NRH's Board of Directors responded with a plan to address affordable housing needs on an existing owned site in Niagara. This land was already zoned for seniors and housed 29 senior households at 235 Fitz Street. Together with regional partners, volunteers, tenants, neighbors, and a local architect, NRH put together a plan for a 67-unit building that would link to the existing Fitch building. The new Fitch building, called Fitch East, is a testament to the progress that has been made in building design since the first Fitch was built in 1982.
It's wonderful to see how Niagara Regional Housing has taken into consideration universal design and the FADS document in creating accessible units for our local community.
Fitch East is universally accessible.
For example, the roll-in showers, higher sinks, the mirrors, the lower sinks, actually looking in the kitchen with the pull-out countertop, the ability for rolling up to the sinks, using the stove or accessing the refrigerator.
It includes 3 fully accessible ground floor, 1-bedroom apartments. The building is highly energy efficient. It will exceed the current building code requirements for energy savings by at least 40%, mostly ground source heating and cooling by geothermal. It will be financially self-sufficient through a mixture of rent geared to income, affordable and market rents. Fitch East will support itself with no ongoing impact to the tax base or taxpayer. NRH is also proud that this new building will be LEED certified. LEED certification means the building has achieved leadership in energy and environmental design, and that careful thought has been given to the carbon footprint this project will have on the environment. Fitch East is a shining example of smart growth principles. It is an infill project that uses an existing community to accommodate more tenants. It is Niagara Regional Housing's first entirely smoke-free community.
There is a clear demand for smoke-free housing in our community. So in addition to the health benefits, 100% smoke-free multi-unit dwellings are practical in that they decrease fire hazards and they also reduce unit cleaning costs. So unit cleaning costs can include painting and other smoking-related damages and maintenance costs.
Fitch East is designed to be walkable to further encourage better well-being through outdoor activity and community interaction.
Public Health congratulates Niagara Regional Housing and recognizes them as a leader in Niagara.
Fitch East reflects the new senior lifestyle. It's modern, environmentally conscious, and encourages good health. It promises to be a welcoming and warm place for seniors to call home.
Very good. Thank you for the time. Just to let you know that that particular building was the subject of a value for money audit by external accounting firm to the region and passed with flying colors. In fact, the conclusions were we did everything right from the beginning of procurement through construction design, award of the tender, and supervision of construction, and to the certification for the LEED standard and occupancy of the tenants. And again, just to help out as well, on Thursday we're going to launch, populate the Alternative Service Delivery Task Force with respect to housing, which will explore all the opportunities, as Ellen pointed out, with different types of partnerships and ways to deliver this important service to the community. And just to drive it home, those 4,684 households represents roughly 10,100 people. In a population of 460,000, that's totally unacceptable. We need to find a way to do better, and with limited resources, and I hope that through the work that we're doing now, through the ASD task force and cooperation from our lower tier partners, we can get there. And I'd be glad, to, Madam Vice Mayor, to take any questions from Council about our presentation.
Thank you. Any questions of the presenters? Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Through you to the presenter, thank you. This is obviously pretty complex job you have. So I'll try to keep my questions simple. Of the, you said there was 88 public and 109 social housing in Port Colborne, which would make a 197, and you mentioned that there was 35 new. Is that added to the 197 or part of the 197, the total?
It's added to.
So there's like 232 then?
There would be, yeah.
Okay, so then my next question is, of the 599 people that are on the waiting list, can you tell me how many of that 599 would maybe be getting like a housing allowance that would help them where they are, or qualify for like a housing first, or there was like a whole bunch of things on that slide, like Niagara Renovates and Rent Supplement and Welcome Home Niagara and grants. So I just wondered, of that 599, how does that kind of work into like a Port Colborne number that they would be accessing that help while they're on the wait list?
I don't specifically know that answer.
Okay.
But I can try and find that out for you.
Okay, that'd be good.
We'll have that for Councillor Barrick's report the next cycle of council.
Sure,
for
that'd be
and
great.
You can break that down to the way that the council, when the council's
Okay.
done with the questions, we'll have
Okay,
that for 'em.
and as a follow-up, then, under that housing homelessness action plan, I just wonder, like, when you have the 599 on a wait list, like, how do you, or do you somehow determine, like, we know, for example, with our connections with the high schools, that there's like a lot of kids who really are homeless and they're couch surfing, but they're not going to be part of your numbers because obviously they're not registered with really anybody. They're just surfing their way through, trying to have a place to lay down their heads, right? So is there a way that you can, or do you kind of reach out in that kind of part of people that aren't on your list but who really don't have either good homes or housing at all?
So the answer to that would be technically no. We're not actively seeking more people to add to that list, right? We do certainly want to encourage people who have precarious housing to make the application now. Most of the time we find is particularly younger people they're thinking a 5-year wait, I'm not even
Right.
going to apply, what's the point? And I understand why they feel that way, but it means that our list isn't really necessarily truly representative of the need, right?
Correct.
So there's other programs that support youth with all the supports that they need to be successful. So technically, 16-year-olds and above can apply for rent geared to income housing in the province of Ontario. And if they qualify, they can go on a list. In Stratford, we had a much shorter list, which is common in many of the rural areas. So some of those kids were hitting and getting units. And it's not a good thing when somebody has had a hard time and maybe not good role modeling, and they get their own unit in the Keys with no adults, because it's an apartment. We don't run and operate group homes.
Right.
So it's very challenging for some of the kids, because then all their friends find out that they've got a space. So even when a youth is trying to do really well, we had a lot of challenges with kids that got taken advantage of in those situations because they did have a roof over their head. So what I think is important is, do we have in that continuum supports for people to help them, or to, if we could put people in who were vulnerable and hadn't had an opportunity to learn how to be successful as a tenant, an adult, they're not even an adult yet really, right?
Right.
To have the supports they need to be really successful when they enter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, thanks, Ellen and Paul. Thanks for your time to come down and present tonight. I guess the one negative thing about the presentation is that whenever we have Niagara Regional Housing come down, the numbers never seem to decrease, which is unfortunate, to say the least. Just a couple of quick questions. With the funding that is that IAHE funding, and it says that there's $11.7 million available, which I'm going to assume is probably a 10th or a 20th or a 100th of what you really need to get units back to market. How do you base where you're going to build and the type of units that you want to build? And what market do you target to build in throughout the and I know that may be an extremely tough question to answer, but do you look for certain styles of units to build in order to accommodate the most needy or the biggest percentage of homeless people or people that are in need of housing?
I'm going to answer the first part, and I get Alan to explain exactly what type of housing is being built with this money. Our hope was, and we challenged the staff at Housing that deal with our real estate acquisition, to reach out to all the communities within Niagara to ask for properties, potentially whether they be city-owned or private, through the Economic Development and Planning Office, to be presented to us for either acquisition, donation, however that would work, to do that, and we only had a couple. So that was going to be my ending part, to say, please help us here in Port Colborne respond to our request and see what we can do to build these type of houses in Port Colborne. The way that those houses, those particular units, is very prescriptive on what they can and how, what part of the waiting list they would work towards eliminating. And Alan's going to explain to you what those houses are, the type of people on the waiting list that would be eligible for those units once they were ready for occupancy. That they're different.
Well, they're different because of the income. When I was showing you that chart before about what the average market rent is, and then what you would see is 80% of that, this new funding is all about, it's that incentive to build. So they work with developers, whether it be us or a private developer, and the deal is you can get funding up to 75% per unit, and it's a 20-year forgivable loan, but you have to keep that unit for the 20 years at 80% of the area market rent set by CMHC. So that's the trade-off. So it's like paying it forward, really. You don't have to take as much of a mortgage out on those units, but you pay it back. Instead of paying the government back, you're paying it back to society with keeping the rents more controlled. So that's the effort, that's all of those new funding sources. And they're great, but not everybody, if your RGI calculation, if you only make $1,200 a month, and your RGI calculation for rent would be $400, or just under 400, $370 for 30%, having to pay $580 is a difference about whether you're going to be able to get groceries that week, or if you're eating cat food, or if you're going to a food bank, or those kinds of things. It becomes the difference of real choices, and that's difficult. So as I said earlier, that's what we're lobbying as an industry to talk to the government levels about it's time to get back in the game. You know, you need to provide us with steady funding sources. So again, this new rent sup money that we've had, fabulous. It's helping 380 families, and it's going to do it for like 5 years. Then it's gone. The housing allowance for people on the wait list, it's going to help. It's great while we have it, but when IEH commitment runs out in 5 years, 4 years from now, it's gone. We don't know if they're going to do it again. We were grateful they did it this time. It was 3 years, and then they extended it. So that's where we're living all the time when we're looking at these new funding pots. It's fantastic when we have it, but it's not forever. And it's not a great way to deal with such a critical social and economic challenge as housing for communities. So,
Go ahead.
Just a quick follow-up. Paul, you said that you put it out to all the municipalities for properties and only had 2 replies. And I'm just going to put it out there. Were we one that did reply?
I'm not going to throw the staff under the bus here, but
and that's
there might be reasons for that.
Okay.
It went out 2 weeks ago. We got responses from St. Catharines in Welland, and we're trying again to get people to do,
Okay.
you know, there's no finite time to respond. If I can, through you,
we'll get staff response.
Yeah.
I will ask Dan to speak to that.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Elliott, I did send an email out to Regional Housing after they made a presentation to the area planners. I did not hear back.
So I'll throw something out there. We do have an application before council in a planning matter to bring more units online.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the applicant is aware of anything that could be a partnership with Niagara Regional Housing. I'm not exactly sure if he's explored all those issues. I don't know if we've even steered him in that direction, but after your presentation tonight and seeing the funding and supporting funds that are available to somebody that has that application, would it be fair to say that we could exchange information with
If
Niagara Regional
I can,
Housing and the proponent?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, the door's open. It's not for everybody. Not every developer is ready for this. There are conditions. The margins on development and return that's expected sometimes don't fit into that model. But we're willing to work with everybody. And I said, you know, repeat the quote I had in the media a couple of weeks ago, nothing's off the table, right? We need to look at different ways to make this work. And, you know, as I said, it's an unacceptably high number of people on the waiting list. It's a difficult file, as Councillor Butters said, to manage. And we need to be creative. And again, as I said, nothing will be rejected out of hand. And we're willing to work with any proponent at the beginning, as they come through the door, whether they be nonprofit, private sector, or a combination of that through the municipality, which is what happened in Welland and St. Catharines.
Perfect. And if I could just take those thoughts, Dan, I don't know if the gentleman has any information on what's available to him with regards to his application. I don't know if you want to give him any information and say that partnership is available.
I'm not sure if the actual individual that you're referring to is aware of the program. My email was looking more or less for the city's involvement with this, for potential lands that we have available, and to find out exactly what regional housing was looking for and the partnerships that they were looking for. But now that you mention that, I will reach out to the applicant.
Yeah, just to let them know.
We'll follow up with the our planning staff and real estate staff at the City of Port Colborne.
Absolutely.
Well.
Thanks.
Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Paul, I agree with you. It's unacceptable, the number of people on the list. What is even more unacceptable is the fact that here in Port Colborne, we have a waiting list that takes people 10 years to get into a unit that they need. And a lot of people can't afford to wait 10 years, but they do. And they find a way because they're very good at it. But it's unacceptable that when someone makes an application, they're accepted, and then 10 years later, they're called and told, yes, we've got a unit for you. And that's even worse than the numbers. Here in Port Colborne, I don't know about the rest of the peninsula, but here in Port Colborne, the average waiting time is 10 years. And I don't know what the answer to that is. And I'm glad to hear that you feel that it's unacceptable. I'd like to see a plan where that number of years is decreased somehow. And sometimes I sleep at night, I go to bed at night thinking there's got to be a way, there's got to be something we can figure out. I don't know all the ins and outs, that's my problem. But the 10 years is totally, totally unacceptable. Okay?
If I can, as a comment, Madam Vice Mayor, through you to Councillor Doucette, I agree. I also understand completely that it's not unique to Port Colborne. The waiting list is similarly the velocity of turn before people actually get a unit from waiting list application to occupancy is unacceptably high, and it's plus or minus a few months, a year, depending on the location where you are. It's like 8-9 years in Welland, 10 years. It doesn't really change much. There's a level of absurdity with the application. But it's also difficult, and it took me a long time as well, as you said, to wrap my head around the fact that we have very well-meaning public servants on the other side of the equation at Community Services and Ontario Works that are able to delineate between degrees of homelessness and understand that and wedge people into programs. And that's part of our difficulty with that data as well as how we move people and find them acceptable housing. I think that going back, though, in history and trying to rewrite these things and complain about it, I don't think it's going to be at all productive. I think we've cut that off, and I think that now with the board we have, and I believe that Regional Council, by putting it on the dial as a measurement of community achievement with respect to that, and if you look at the regional website, the resources will be there to make it a meaningful impact on housing moving forward, and we need to find a way as you said, to do that. And the only real way to do that is to increase supply of available housing. And I think that that would be the focus over the next year or so, to come up with a comprehensive plan to make that happen.
The follow-up to that? I agree with some of what you're saying. The only issue is where you're going to get the money from, because as of the last budget, there was no increase, according to the region, on any housing. So how do you increase your numbers, and how do you increase your availability if you don't have any extra money, or any money? You're just barely making it as it is. Yes. So that's a concern of mine. Okay, so you can't be talking about one thing but not doing it on the other end. They just don't go together.
If I can, and I appreciate the question, Councillor, and in fact, there was an increase with respect to capital. We returned all the money back to housing with respect to their surplus, and allowed them, and rightly so, to manage and to be more independent and manage the money. Program over program was similarly funded year over year, and that is correct. However, as we saw during the last federal election, the promise was made that the federal government would return to funding housing after a 4-year holiday from funding housing. And my understanding from the AMO policy analyst that I spoke to last week, that the announcements will start to flow before the budget, the federal budget is announced, and the programs with respect to housing will be real. Whether it's never going to be enough, but we're going to get it. We're going to start to receive money to help augment what we're doing now. And we need to, as I said earlier, go out to all members of the community to help us be creative and find ways to make these resources. Because really, at the end of the day, we're the last line of defense, and this really shouldn't be funded on the property tax levy, right? We should be funded for administration, but not actually programming. And it is unconscionable that we're funding this on the property tax levy. And I think when you peel it away, we're doing a pretty good job with the scarce resources that we have.
Thank you. I just have a question. Okay. In regards, because when I listened to your presentation this evening about the renovations, how often in all these, because they're pretty weary, the ones that you've listed here, those apartments are older and they're pretty weary. They need maintenance, and I know you have individuals who are supposed to be the maintenance person or caretaker of the building. But how often is money spent actually on renovating what you have so it doesn't fall down?
$3 million this year.
Well, the total portfolio for the public housing component sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor, is just over $5 million for this year. And the industry standard is supposed to be 2% of your value of your properties. So it's not quite 2% of our properties, but at the same time, they are older, so they're requiring more. And that's where the challenge comes in, to say we need to get those higher levels of government back involved, because they do have the capacity, they have the dollars to help with this. And while we're waiting, there's deterioration happening. So if we're in the same boat as some of our providers are about how you make ends meet on those pieces. So sometimes it feels like, I think there's choices about robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Like what's the most urgent need that we have to deal with, and how do we do that? And we also have, this week alone, we had a boiler go, and new standards it was grandfathered in the old rules, but the way it is in one of our buildings, you have to kind of shimmy in between the boiler and the wall, and when you replace it, you have to go to the new standards. So now we're having to expand the space and do all this upgrading to meet. So that's a big repair, but we have to have it for a backup generator for it's a generator because it's an elevator. It's a 10-story building. So there's things like that come up that inspectors come and we don't see the crack at the back, and it's the backup generator. So these are ongoing problems.
If I can with that, Madam Vice Mayor, the other problem we have is we're somewhat hamstrung by the convoluted rules about how we manage our assets. And we are hoping that, and what I hear again, is that some of the chains are going to be taken off, and we'll be able to leverage those assets and borrow against them to do the fixing and keep those units in place. The average age is 43 years old, right? So it's becoming difficult on the life cycle, but we need to maintain that supply, and we will be doing so. And hopefully we'll be able to be, again, more creative and flexible with the financing on that to catch up on the backlog and do preventative maintenance to keep those units in the supply mix, those that are acceptable, keep them in the supply mix for the time being and for a significant part of the future.
Thank you. Because just another further comment, because I certainly don't feel individuals who are requiring affordable housing should live in substandard housing. They should not. If we're really helping them, we're helping them. I'll remember an incident where I had to call on our regional councillor Barrick to get help for an individual because they were told, that individual who was renting was told there's no money to fix that. But the ceiling where they sit to eat was falling down on them. And if it wasn't for Councillor Barrick, it probably would have not got fixed. He had to go to somebody that he knew at the region, and the problem did get fixed. But that's putting that individual who's afraid really almost open their mouth in substandard housing, which I think is sad. So I just asked about the renovation. I think it's something that whoever you have working at those units, who is your maintenance man, who is the custodian, should be saying these units need attention and not say, we're going to do that in a little while. So
one of the challenges we do have is that we get confused between what are the co-ops and not-for-profits and what are the public housing units. And I'm not saying that we would never miss a maintenance call, but that does happen sometimes. So then we have to work with those boards because they're operated by independent boards, and we're a monitoring agency. So we're monitoring and we're influencing and we're trying to help them deal with those. So sometimes that's the issue too. So calls to us alert us to working with that group, but it's a longer process that we don't have the authority to go in and fix something that day. So that's just one thing to keep in mind too, because we try to, that happens a lot.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Has there ever been any thought in, and I'm going to say this, and I know that some people are just going to look at me and say, what the hell is going on? Has there been any thought in eliminating any stock that you have and turning it private and then going to strictly the rental support so that the individuals can find acceptable places for themselves, and then the regional housing would kick in that difference that they can afford or cannot afford, and by doing that, then the only thing you're managing are the funds for those individuals to stay in good, solid housing, and the maintaining of that becomes the responsibility of the landlord and not us and not you guys. And I'm just wondering, because I mean, it sounds like an easy fix, and I know it isn't an easy fix, but it may be a good way to go.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Vice Mayor, there's two parts. First, I'm going to say that the rules for disposition of assets, again, are almost as convoluted as those with financing, but it is something we need to look at, because some of them we really shouldn't be maintaining anymore, and we need, and hopefully with this ASD programming, we can get real measurement of the condition. But what you said earlier about a universal solution, the real problem is a lot of private sector landlords don't really want some of our clients. So with the nonprofits and that, we will always have to have some skin in the game with respect to supply. The other issue, and I'm glad you brought this up, there is a real constricting of supply throughout Niagara, and there hasn't been any meaningful apartments built in the region in over 40 years. So we need to catch up, and we need to help catalyze the construction either through ourselves, nonprofit, and the private sector, and as I said, I am relatively indifferent about the long-term viability of housing and how we would manage either contracts or owned units, as long as the waiting list went down. But it is virtually impossible for us not to have any skin in the game and not to be an owner in some capacity, to have control over the supply in some measure, so that the market maintains a stability and that we have an ability to target for certain clientele that may not be desirable for the private sector tenants. And we need to do that. But you wanted to add to that?
I would just say too, that affordable housing funding that started coming out around 2006. We're halfway through that 20-year commitment for the first lot across the province that have gone through. So we're down to 9 years of that 20-year commitment at the 80% rent. When we work with private landlords, their commitment expires at the 20 years. So they put their rents up to market. If we're lucky, we'll be able to negotiate a rent supplement with them to keep the unit. But they're like, tick tock, I'm done, right? And that's part of the challenge. When you're building those units in 2006, 20 years feels forever. We're solving the problem now. But we're already starting to think about that, because a lot of those are maturing at the same time those end of operating agreements are coming. So we're not going to have 5,000, 8,000 units across the Niagara region to populate anymore if we keep losing them with end of operating agreements. That's our challenge. So when we own them, like at Fitch Street, the requirement is 80% rent. So if you have 100 buildings, they all have 80% rent. What we're able to do, and what we take the time to do, is we put some people in at deep RGI. We put some in at market to fund that RGI. And we put the rest in at the 80%. And we're willing to do that work with the different tenants and the different needs and take that time, because that's part of our job. So we don't see the same level of adjustment with the private landlords that are in the program. And that was the same in the service area I was before, and my peers are experiencing the same thing. So we lose some of the control and the flexibility. It feels flexible. And certainly we have over 1,000 rent supplements right now. Rent supplements and housing allowance right now. But there's a lot of negotiation with the landlords. There's a lot of work to keep good landlords engaged. And landlords are leaving, and we're finding new ones all the time. So it's a challenge that way too. But it is a very good, we have to look at diversification. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and Councillor for all your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. We look forward to working with the City of Port Colborne in the future, and we'll be back at least once a year to provide an update to Council.
We hope that next time you come, that the numbers, as Councillor said, are just a little bit less.
We're gonna do our best.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have delegations, and sorry, medical students, for keeping you so long. I saw you rubbing your eyes, thinking. But anyways, we have Ellery Cunnan, Kylie Ledwick, Caitlin Newell from the Michael DeGroot School of Medicine and the Niagara Regional Campus, including the Participatory Action Research Project. Welcome, and again, I apologize for us taking so long. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kenny, and members of council, staff, and the few viewers that are left here. It does give me a great deal of pleasure to bring these energetic, dynamic, young, collaborative thinkers into council chambers tonight. It's an amazing opportunity for us to work once again with students from Brock University and the Michael G. DeGroot School of Medicine. So I'm going to hand it over to them. This is their project, their baby. I'm just a facilitator, so please enjoy what they have to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. Deputy Mayor Kenny, members of City Council, and for those watching at home as well. We'd like to thank you for welcoming us to your City Council meeting tonight. We really do appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to what we do have to say. So I'd like to start off by introducing us. My name is Ellery, and I'm a medical student at the Niagara Regional Campus of McMaster University, and just one of a group of very motivated students who together we call ourselves the PAR group, or the Participatory Action Research Group. With me are also Caitlin and Kylie, both of whom are students at Brock University in the Medical Sciences program and part of the Med Plus group, as well as one of my classmates at McMaster. Her name is Yasmin. And so we're here tonight to talk to you a little bit about what PAR is, as well as we're here to talk to you about who we are, what PAR is, and hopefully with blessing from members of your community, how we hope to get involved with Port Colborne at some time in the near future. So I'm going to start off a little bit by talking about PAR. So I think that the definition up here, which has been taken from a paper that comes out of San Francisco in California by group Green et al., definitely sums it up well. It's defined as systematic inquiry with the collaboration of those affected by the issue being studied for the purpose of education and taking action or affecting change. So in probably some simpler terms, it's research that engages the people that are most affected by the topic being studied. It's research that places great value and importance on their input in deciding how to proceed with whatever topic is being studied. So where did we hear about this idea from? We actually had members from a medical school in the Philippines, the Ateneo de Zamboanga School of Medicine. They actually came over to Brock and presented to members of Brock University as well as members from our medical school. And they told us about how they had been integrating PAR into their medical curriculum. They made it a mandatory part of their MD/Masters of Public Health program, where they would encourage their students to go off into different settings in the southern Philippines and rural communities and see how they can get their students more engaged with these populations. So these students would go door to door and they'd ask members of the community simply, what do you think your community could benefit from most? We thought that was an interesting way to approach research, and we were kind of curious as to how that might look in the Niagara region. We were wondering whether that kind of research would even gain traction in Niagara. And so with that, we came together as a group and set off to figure this out. And with that, I'll leave it off to Caitlin, who will kind of tell you how we went about doing that.
Thank you, Ellery. Good evening, everyone. As Ellery mentioned, my name is Caitlin, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what we've already done up to this point. So we were really fortunate to speak in front of the Niagara Health Trust last fall, and this included various stakeholders throughout Niagara, including Niagara Region's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Valerie Yeager, a representative from a local community health center, Dr. Carl E. Stobie, and a representative of Port Colborne, which is Joanne. So it was at this presentation that Joanne approached us and showed an interest in working with us. She told us how invested the citizens of Port Colborne are in their community and that they're always looking for ways to better their community. And so we all had this collective thought, does PAR have a place in Port Colborne? So we divided into groups to work on environmental scans based on different categories, such as the ones we have shown. And this provided us a really good foundation of what's already been done in Niagara so that we're more knowledgeable going into this. So with these certain topic areas our group researched, we realized that certain ones stood out to us as being potential venues for implementing PAR in Port Colborne.
So that being said, the true spirit of participatory action research is hearing from the community and getting their feedback on what they think needs to be addressed in their community and what they think would be most beneficial. So thus there's a chance that what is on the screen in those categories don't actually address what the community feels needs to be. And so this is why we are hoping and planning to hold a town hall meeting. And so we've been working with Joanne, who's thankfully it helped us determine a time, place, and date for a town hall meeting. And basically what we want to do at this town hall meeting is just have an open discussion with community members and hear their feedback on what they feel has been really beneficial in their community and resources that get their feedback on certain resources that we've discovered through our environmental scans. And also get their feedback on what they feel needs to be addressed. We ultimately want to determine if PAR has a place in Port Colborne and if they would be interested in working with us and what they think might be most effective and beneficial in their community.
Thanks. So looking kind of in the long term, our major goal is really to create some sort of initiative and research this initiative within hopefully the community of Port Colborne, and ultimately we wanted to make it very community driven, so that's a big thing for us, and as well making it sustainable. So we want it to be something that we can implement, but it will last longer once we graduate and once we move on, and ultimately to create a positive change for the community here. Just a few considerations that are really important for us and we want to really convey to you all today is that we want this to really be a partnership between us and the City of Port Colborne, and we want the community to be invested in this project and to feel like it is something that they want to do. We want the ideas to come from them, and it's something that we can all work towards together. As we move forward, it really is based on the feedback that we receive from you guys today and also from our discussions in the town hall meetings, and that will kind of guide us in the long run. And so we just kept it nice and short and sweet for you guys tonight, but we want to, if there's any feedback from you today or any thoughts or questions, whether you think this is something that would work here or if you have any suggestions for the town hall and how the best way to approach it would be.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Gisette?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a question for you and maybe a comment to the media. Let's make sure we get the town hall announcement out in the media to make sure that everyone is aware. We don't want a room full of nobody.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's critical. That's number one. Would the town hall meeting be up here? Or, okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. I didn't see a place in them, and maybe I was just misunderstanding. That's number one. Number two, this is to hopefully develop a plan that would help the city in every part of its life. Not only, so an individual, it's not only the medical part, it's social and everything together create the being. So I think it's critical that everyone understand that we're not only talking medical needs, we're talking social needs, we're talking all the needs that the citizens here in Port Colborne have. And I believe that's what I was hearing you say, but I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to the citizens. So after all I'm concerned, it's welcome.
Thank you.
And all you can do is help us, and that's great, and that's what we need. And I think the community has to be aware of the fact that we need you in here on March 3rd, and we need to hear, again another time when we need to hear what you have to say. And that's critical, very critical. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up those points. I think they're super important. Just so everyone is aware, the town hall is the 3rd of March, and there's 2 actually 1-hour town halls. So the first will be from 7 to 8, and the second from 8 till 9. And yeah, obviously we do have an invested interest in health, but we have learned a lot about social determinants of health and all these different aspects that kind of play into overall well-being. And so we're definitely interested in looking at all of those issues and coming up with a plan together.
And we've just handed out posters as well, which will be posted on the city website and as well just all over the town. Thankfully, Joanne is going to be doing that for us.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Question, great presentation. I'm curious, are you going to like kind of targeting making sure like these posters get up through, you know, like say the high school community, for example, or the senior citizen centers, Bridges Community Health Center, all those kinds of avenues?
We've actually been, thank you for the question, we've actually been speaking to a few members of the community. I guess I'll leave unnamed for now, but they've made a few suggestions, including us contacting Port Cares, Bridges Community Center, those kinds of things. So over the next week, we will be passing that on, that information on as well. We did want to come and present what we had for you first before we kept going, keeping in mind any concerns that you may have raised tonight before proceeding with that. But definitely over the course of the next week or so, in preparation for the town hall next week, we will be passing that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Great. Sorry, we were so long. Go ahead. I just wonder with this, will you be, because people want to come and they definitely want to talk, but are you going to give them some ideas that you want them to think about? So these things with the food insecurity, and I think they need some ideas to know when they're coming into this meeting what they can talk about. And I think that's great because these are things, the food insecurity and the social isolation, those are key areas that I think that our community would be interested in. But I also think that you have to kind of give them a little bit of a guideline, so when they come into the meeting, they know what they're going to be talking about it. So maybe on our website, or maybe with this, Joanne, you could give some pointers. I think it's great you're thinking about Port Colborne and including that, and I really do think you have a place, and I think we can all work together to make a better community. So I'm very pleased that you're interested in participating. So that's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kenny. We have discussed that actually as a group, and we're trying to really keep in line with PAR for this town hall. So what we're trying to do actually is keep it very open discussion, have the citizens actually come up with ideas of their own before we plant ideas in their mind of the topics that we've come up with. So we really just want to hear from the community first. But if we find during these town halls that ideas just aren't coming up, then we might start bringing up some ideas to get some conversation starting. So
perfect. Okay. Thank you.
And in keeping with that, we did prepare a list of triggering questions too, in case we didn't receive any. I guess, and if there were no ideas being generated at the time, we do have questions ready. Again, in keeping in line with what we've already looked at.
Perfect. Thank you. Again, thank you very much for coming, and we enjoyed your presentation, and certainly gives all of us food for thought.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A lot of local talent, a lot of businesses in the community when you get their program that support the Operatic Society, and I think that's fantastic. So if you are planning on attending, please get your tickets quickly, and because they had I think they had almost a sold-out crowd on opening night, and it was a good performance. There's a Southern Tier Mayor's Luncheon on Tuesday, March the 22nd, from 11:30 to around 2, and it's all the mayors in the Southern Tier, and Councillor Main and I went last year, and it was really exciting, and it would be nice if we could have a whole table of city councillors. So if you're available, that would be great, and we can all send our register with Carrie at the chamber. And I think that would be a good thing for all of us. So that's all from me. And then we have Councillor Barrick for his regional report to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate that. Just have a couple of quick topics today. One of them is the region is investing over $7 million in Port Colborne. A design-build contract is slated to be awarded this Thursday to Landmark Structures for the construction of a new elevated water storage tank. The new water tower is to address a deficiency in the water storage volume identified in the 2011 Water Wastewater Master Servicing Plan. In May 2012, a municipal class environmental assessment was carried out in partnership with the City of Port Colborne, with the city providing input during the project design. And the project is part of an overall servicing plan that will ultimately provide security of water supply to the city's residents and allow growth within the city. Construction is scheduled to start early this year and complete by summer of 2017. Also, the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology, otherwise known as SWIFT, initiative is a project to build an ultra-high-speed fiber optic internet network for everyone in Western Ontario and Niagara. The project aims to provide access to fiber optic high-speed internet access for 3.5 million Ontarians living in rural areas. The Niagara region has signed up as a partner for SWIFT, and a feasibility study is now underway. Some of the benefits of SWIFT, the SWIFT project, include supporting the growth of small businesses in rural areas, including in Port Colborne, by expanding access to online and e-commerce tools, securing significant federal and provincial investment to improve Niagara's information infrastructure, and better connectivity of residents in rural communities with online information and services. There is input on the region's website for the feasibility study if residents want to go on the region's website, and there is a short survey there. And finally, more of an operational improvement at the region. They did last week go live with their new enhanced financial management system. And what that means essentially is a greater ability to manage their budgets, better service delivery, and greater ability to meet financial commitments. So that EFMS system, as we call it, has been years in the making, and it was an investment, and it will have a return on investment. And I know that was a lot of work on regional staff's part, and that went live last week, so we're pretty excited about that there as well. So a couple of investment items and an operational efficiency item. Happy to take any questions, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Any questions, Council, to our regional council? No questions? Thank you, Dave. We're going to move on. All right, move on to councillors' issues or inquiries. Anything on my left? Councillor Bodnar and Councillor Elliott, and okay, perfect. We'll start with the left. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Through you to, I think this will be to Dan. Dan, I've been dealing with, and I know bylaw has been dealing with sea containers on certain properties in the city of Port Colborne, and I guess there was a suggestion that it'll be coming to council to discuss the bylaw. Can you highlight when that might happen and what the process might be for that?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bonner, what we have right now is a situation where right now there are 6 properties within the city of Port Colborne, wards 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've received complaints with sea containers being stored on the property. Back in 2008, we changed the zoning bylaw to add that sea containers are not permitted except on industrial zoned lands. So property owners right now are in violation, and they're asking, what can we do? We've given them the options, told them that you either apply for the zoning change to allow that, or you may convince council to change the bylaw to permit them. So we kind of put it back to the residents to then approach council with what their intentions are. We in turn then would, based on the council direction, reintroduce either a zoning amendment or tell the property owners that no, the bylaw will remain the same and not permit them anywhere in the city except in industrial zones as it presently is.
Dan, would this apply to both businesses and individuals, residential?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, this would apply to all property owners that own property in the city, whether it's commercial landowners, residential landowners. Because right now, only property that is zoned industrial are permitted to have them on the property. They're an industrial unit. So if there's a property owner that has a residential property, it would apply. If it's someone that has land that is not zoned industrial, they're in present violation.
So just so the process is clear, so we'll set a meeting aside, notify the residents that are in, that have a problem, and I'm sure there's others out there we haven't even discovered yet. So they'll come here and make a presentation to council. Will you have a recommendation at the time, or I would imagine you'd wait till you hear from the residents, just so they know what's expected of them if they show up?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, right now, the landowners have been requested to approach council. I'm not aware if the clerk has received any sort of information to actually be on council's agenda, Right now, they're in violation. Unless council has direction to us or consideration to initiate a zoning change or a report to actually talk further on the matter, we can bring that forward.
Perhaps then, that's probably the best method is ask, I guess we'll ask if staff to bring a report back for us to look at the pros and cons of having that bylaw in place, not in place. Maybe if I could just have some direction from the CAO, that would be great too. You want to go ahead of the CAO?
Well, I was just going to say, if first of all, if we are going to have a meeting, then we should have a date for it. I don't know whether we have that. And then what is the time frame for people to notify the clerk that they want to be on? Because I've seen things floating around where they got to notify by May the 5th for a 29th meeting. That seems a little long, but anyways, and would we want to hear from the proponents first before council, before staff? I don't know. I'll let it go further.
So through the deputy mayor to council and Councillor Bodnar specifically, I defer to the director's opinion on this matter too. I sort of had the same question as to whether we wanted to hear from staff what the implications of a change in the bylaw would be before letting the people who have the objection to the current rule coming in and speaking to council. I have a feeling that the director and the enforcement officers at the city know what we're going to hear at council, and I'm not sure if it would, I'm not sure what the benefit of letting them come in prior to council knowing what the implications of making a change are, or considering them both the same night, let people come in and be a delegate while the staff report is on the agenda later on. I think the pitfall here is they make a compelling case, but it's only one side of the argument, and council makes direction to staff that's maybe contrary to all of the information that council would need to have before making that direction to council. So with deference to Mr. Aquilina, I would say staff report before public meeting.
Thank you. And if we could hear from our clerk on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. At this point in time, I've heard from two individuals that would like to speak to council on this subject, and the idea was that it was going to be during a regular council meeting. So the challenge there is that we have a limit of 3 delegations. So I'm in agreement with the recommendation of the CAO that it would be appropriate to have a staff report on the agenda, and that way, if members of public want to come out and speak, they can do so at that meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can have Councillor Bodnar, since you're the councillor that brought that up, would you like to make a motion to that effect and have a seconder? And
I'm not sure I want to do that because I'm not sure I agree with the with how it's presented by the CAO. So the reason I'm saying that is I look at it almost like a public meeting. We take the information, then staff kind of makes a report. Now maybe like the CAO said, they've heard everything they're going to hear from the people they've said you can't have these containers on. I don't know. I'm not prepared to do it right now. If someone else would like to, that's fine. One thing I would say, if we do a report, I'd like to see it broken up between residential and businesses or whatever you want to call it. But because anyways, I'll let staff do that. But you know, I'm not too much in favor of having them on residential properties, but I do see a need for a number of businesses that maybe could be under some kind of site plan control or something. You know, they can't put them all over, but anyways, if I was going to see a staff report, I'd like to see it with a reference to residential and a reference to what I'll call businesses.
John, you have sorry, Councillor May.
Through Deputy Mayor to, I guess it would be Dan. When I read that, Councillor Bodnar sent out some emails. I did a little bit of inquiring over the internet, there's lots of communities that are using containers, which are physically quite substantial, making houses out of them. There's a place just outside of Las Vegas, and the whole subdivision is made out of containers. So I was wondering whether, if someone put a container on their property, residential property, and they put it there underneath a building permit and brought it up to standard, like depending on how many square feet it would be, like it would be the same as a single car garage, it would be the same as a garden shed, as long as it was brought up to standard the way it should look, and wouldn't be make the surrounding neighbors, depressing in their property or devaluing their property by having a sea container there. Maybe that'd be an option. Like if I had a chance to buy a container and I needed a garage, and you could put it there and make a garage out of it. You could put it there and make a garden shed out of it, as long as you met all the codes and all the standards and had a building permit for the square feet of whatever it took up. Would that be a possibility?
Through Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Main, I did have a conversation today with our chief building official, and if someone was intending to actually place one of these on their property, they would need a building permit. Our CBO is saying that if someone was going to develop by using the sea containers, and I'll give you an example, you refer to the construction of a dwelling. One would be able to do so because at that point, it's no longer a shipping container, it's part of a permit for another use. But if a shipping container is going to be placed on a property as an accessory residential, that's still a shipping container. It's not a garage or a shed, it's a storage container. It's a shipping container that would then not be permitted. Looking forward in the future, one may want to actually construct a house out of a shipping container. Our bylaw would need to talk about that, but it may no longer be considered a shipping container because it's under a permit for a house. May be permissible.
Medical, social, and everything together create the
direction from the CAO that would.
medical, social, and everything.
Thank you, Dan. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess I'm having problems trying to figure out why we would let people that have them in violation of a bylaw come to council and plead to allow them to keep them even though they're in violation of a bylaw, because I'm not too sure that we ever have anybody come to council to plead for forgiveness for being in violation of a bylaw. You're either in violation or you're not. So we either change the bylaw to accommodate sea containers or move them, or we change the zoning that they're allowed under, like Councillor Bodner said, to go from strictly industrial to allow it for commercial purposes. Or we go the full 9 yards and go into residential properties as well. Because as our bylaws sit right now, if you're in contravention of a bylaw, and we've got that tonight on the agenda, we're going to make you remedy the situation. So how do you let people come to plead to allow something that's in contravention of a bylaw when we don't do that? And I'll throw that out to the CAO or Dan or our bylaw enforcement officer. How do you let somebody do that?
Through Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Elliott, we try to give everyone every opportunity for any sort of compliance methods. So it's not a recommended one, but we were asked, can we have council's consideration? And that's what we alluded that to the residents, that that's something that you got to do. If you want to go down that road to see if you have council support, contact the councillors. If there's any traction from the councillors, they may be on your side and maybe something that could be brought up at council to then explore. Fact is, it's in violation. Fact is, we get complaints. Fact is, back in 2007, I came back in planning, we had complaints then. And so in 2008, we put the bylaw in place to not allow them in residential areas. and in commercial areas. And the only place was in industrial zoned areas.
I will say it's an interesting quagmire. I mean, if somebody can give me an example of one time where we had somebody come and ask for forgiveness of contravention of a bylaw and we allowed it, I'd be interested to hear the rationale behind that. It's got to go back to property standards, and I'd kind of like to know exactly what's the wording on the bylaw right now that says that you can't have them. It specifically says the keeping of a sea container on any property not zoned industrial is not allowed in the city of Port Colborne.
To you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Elliott, that is correct. Section 4.1, prohibited uses, explicitly states you cannot have a shipping container on your property unless it is zoned industrial. Ones that were placed prior to the passage of the bylaw in 2008, they're non-conforming. Those can stay. We know where those are. Ones that have been placed after 2008 are in violation.
Thank you, Dan. To our CEO. Okay.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Council, and I stand to be corrected by the Director because I'm not 100% sure, I'm positive on this, but I think Council can consider a zoning bylaw amendment on a site-specific basis. So an applicant who is not in conformance could come in here, and Council would consider the planning application because only Council can pass a bylaw amending the zoning bylaw on a site-specific basis. I think what we have here is a group of people who are coming forward and saying the rule doesn't work for our purposes for the whole city. And that's why the suggestion is that Council would consider an amendment to the bylaw that applies equally to all properties of a certain type. So it's not site-specific. And the question, I think, is one of process. How do you want to make that unfold? Do you want each applicant or a group of applicants to come out at once and lobby for a change? Or do you want to direct staff to advise Council on the implications of making that change or keeping the status quo? I don't know, is that fair to say?
Through Mr. Deputy Mayor, that's absolutely correct, Mr. Louis. The issue that we've heard from the individuals is that they don't want to have to pay the actual zoning amendment fee to site-specifically zone their lands only. They want to look at the city as a whole and try to get under that.
That's right, you don't want to pay. I had a constituent like that, so I fully am aware of it. And that's exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to make a shipping container into a garage. Had lots of complaints from his neighbors, and he had to dismantle it and take it away because he did not want to pay for a zoning change. So I guess I'll ask Council's, Councilor Bodnar, do you want to make a motion or so we can move on?
Having heard some intelligent conversation around here, I've changed my mind and I will put a recommendation forward that staff come forward with some guidance to us on how, or if they think that bylaw should be amended or changed. And, certainly we could change what they say also by a direction of council, but at least maybe we'd have something to chew on while people are telling us the reason they would like to see it changed. Because I really think there's a huge difference between residential containers and a business that could use these containers. Anyways, you'll hear about it, I think, when the people come to talk about it. But I put that forward, that staff come forward with a report. And can we set that date in stone, March 29th, I think it is, so that everybody knows?
Councilor Bodnar, you've made that motion. I need a seconder.
Sure.
Councilor Butters, all in favor?
29th.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Does that date work for you, Dan, or do you want it?
That works.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, 29th of March.
29th of March. Thank you. 28?
29th is
28th is Easter.
Easter.
Oh, you're right, sorry.
Okay. Yes, certainly.
Just one quick question to staff, maybe to Ron, somebody else. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong most of the time. But didn't we purchase containers when we were doing the street light replacement? And where are we going to keep the containers? Because I'm pretty sure our land's not zoned industrial. So,
Through Deputy Mayor, yes, that's correct. We've always used, for quite a number of years now, sea containers for storage because we're very short of storage space now. We would be on our federal lands down at the end of King Street. We would be exempt. We were prior to 2008. The temporary sea containers, we purchased 2 additional ones that are located at 50 West Side Road. Those are only there on a temporary basis. They stored the street light materials. They're now currently storing the water material, the insulation, the plywood for the frozen water services. Our plan would be to move those to the new operations center and use those with the 2 we currently own at the operations center. But having said all that, we're not zoned industrial, so we would need an exemption of some form, an acknowledgement that because the sea containers are absolutely mandatory that we have them at the new facility. We don't have the storage space we need.
I'd hate to violate our own bylaws.
Yeah, okay. I believe.
One more item, Deputy Mayor, through you to Mr. Hanson, I guess. Had a concern from residents on 3rd Concession. There's a very, what they consider a high volume of heavy trucks using that road to get to a business on another road on Brookfield Road. And they're concerned that the amount of those large trucks are causing some deterioration of the road. I just wondered whether, one thing, can those heavy trucks use that? Do we have any restrictions? And I wondered whether staff could go out and take a look, because it might be as easy as asking the business they're going to direct those trucks on another route that might be more suitable.
Through Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. The truck route bylaw, as it was passed, specifically exempted all the Ward 4 roads. None of them are under the listings in the bylaw for truck routes. The truck routes themselves are strictly for, just as a background information, strictly for through routes. So any truck making a delivery to any specific business can actually go off the truck routes and go to those specific businesses, even on a smaller side road. So that restriction wouldn't be in place. The only restriction that's in place comes into effect next week. It's the half load restriction, which is in effect every year from March the 1st till April 30th, and all the roads are signed to that effect. So as a moving violation, the half load restriction would be in place. I think the best way to approach this, we've seen this as an example with the sludge deliveries we saw in the rural area a number of years ago, the bio sludges, and those are delivered to farms, farm fields on very small rural roads, and they were doing some damage. So I think the best approach here is to assess the condition where the complaint is on 3rd Concession. 3rd Concession and Brookfield Road are both very robust. They're fairly good roads as far as base and so on. So we'll take a look at those and perhaps get the name of the business where the deliveries are occurring, and then what we've done in the past, again, the same as the sludge route tactic, is to try to direct the trucks to possibly Highway 3 and then Brookfield Road as the preferred routes to this business to minimize the damage. Unfortunately, what we found in the past with truckers, they'll take obviously the easiest route, and if perhaps these trucks are coming in off 140, they'll of course take their concession and get to the business as opposed to going a couple extra miles. So That's always been the dilemma in the past. So we can talk to them, talk to the business getting the deliveries, and go from there on it.
Is that it, Councillor? Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Sitting down this week and wondering what's going on with the Ops Center. The progress. I was under the impression we were going to be going to tender right now. And it doesn't seem like we have any final documents to do that with. So can we get a progress report on that? Because I'm starting to be concerned that the good prices you have talked about and others have talked about are not going to materialize if we wait too long. So,
Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Madam, to Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Councillor Doucette. I'll give you just a quick verbal update and then give you an idea where we are with it. We have experienced a slight delay in terms of getting the Class A estimates. Class A estimates meaning all the final totals prior to going to tender. So we had hoped to be at a tender in February. It looks like it's going to be more towards the 1st of April right now. So what we've done in finalizing all the Class A estimates, we're still working on them, is to call for a TAC meeting, and there's members of council that are on our TAC committee. Those are going out. I think it's been scheduled for March the 3rd, I believe. So the TAC committee members will be available at that meeting to review the Class A estimates, which are going to be available at the end of this month, so within the next few days. Once the Class A estimates are approved and we see where we are in terms of the prices, which we will anticipate being the tender prices from our 7 pre-qualified contractors, general contractors, we'll be ready to go. So once that TAC meeting is finalized, we'll have the tender documents ready to go directly to the pre-qualified contractors. So we're about a month or so behind in the schedule, but it's been full speed ahead, and we're right into the final details on things like door hardware, windows, cabling, finalizing the transformation at the building with CNP, getting that overhead line buried. If you'll notice at the intersection, the traffic light poles have been moved to accommodate the entrance. So that work has been done in advance of the contract itself to prepare the entrance. We have the contractor on board to put the culvert in for the new entrance into the facility. So there's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes. So anybody at the TAC meeting on March 3rd will get a full update of where we are, and hopefully we'll be able to tender. We're still anticipating having the tender closing and the award of the contract very early this year, and getting this project underway for an opening hopefully in September 2017. Still on track for that.
Is that it for you? Thank you. Butters, you're next.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. 2 things. Through you to Mr. Sinez, when will we be seeing the budget come to council?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. The current operating budget will be, right now I'm working on the water budget to bring that forward to council, and in the meantime I'm going to be working on bringing forward the report in March for the overall budget, and hopefully we'll have education rates by then also.
A second question. It isn't a question, it's actually a little announcement for the Sherkston Community Center. On March 6th is the chili cook-off. And if you want to come and have some really good chili, Councillor Main has been there. Experienced some of the
I ruined 2 shirts.
finer bits of Ward 4 cooking. It's March 6th at 5 o'clock. If you want to enter your chili, call Mike Fagan at 894-0191. Otherwise, it's like $5 a person. Come on out, have chili. It is a lot of fun, and there are prizes to be won. So if you think you can, put on a good pot of chili, come out and join us and enter into the contest.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. Councillor May, you're next.
Just two quick things. I have had a ratepayer come and show me a picture of Port Colborne, an aerial photograph, probably taken in the mid to late 60s. And I don't know who took it, whether it was Orville Wright or who it was. But the only thing you could see that wasn't green was the nickel plant and the mills, and everything else was like a forest. And I know over the years we've had a lot of trouble with the emerald beetles. We've had a lot of maintenance done to trees and a lot of removal. Is there any will to plant some new trees?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, there is money in the budget for tree planting. I think we've suggested that the ECAC go back and take a look at that, because I think there's money set aside for possibly greening. So there's some money in there, and also in the operations budget. They're in parks as well. There's been a big loss in the parks area as well in terms of the emerald ash borers. So there's money in the parks budget, the roads budget for replacements. There's also an item that was approved in the budget for trees in the downtown area. We want to go in and remove these flowering crabs that are a bit of an eyesore and a bit of a mess. And there was an approval for about a dozen planters, trees and planters, to remove those as well. So there's some initiative going forward, certainly not a large-scale one, but I think the emphasis still is with removals at the present time. I know a lot of the municipalities, looking at our next-door neighbors in Fort Erie, they put $3 million into their budget for ash tree removals, as an example. City of St. Catharines, they're in the millions as well. So that's sort of been the emphasis as opposed to the planting program, but certainly the planting program goes hand in hand with it.
Thank you very much. And one more, Madam Deputy Mayor. I know it's got to be a little bit cooler up here to keep us from falling asleep, because I know you people don't. But for the last couple of weeks, it's been damn cold up here. These vents seem to be blowing cold air all the time. And is there a reason for it? Is it just the makeup unit's not working, or? Thanks.
Through Deputy Mayor, I could say it's energy conservation, but that probably isn't true. I'll have the staff review that tomorrow. We have a new HVAC system, obviously, and certainly shouldn't be cold up here. We should be able to get it working better than this. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is that it, Councillor? Anything else?
No.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I always like to watch the financials, so there was just an announcement if everybody didn't notice. From the province of Ontario through Ogre-Roma, which is the Ontario Good Roads Association, Rural Ontario Municipal Association. Did I get that right? That's kind of sounded right. Whatever the acronym stands for. The OCIF fund is going to be tripled by 2018-19 from $100 million to $300 million, which means that the combined sewer overflow that was on the agenda for tonight, that was funded through that program for $2 million, funding will be coming available. So I went to our strategic list of things that we're looking to repair and what would qualify for funding. And I'll cross off the Op Center at number 1 because we don't qualify for that. The CSO on Nickel was number 2. We're going to do that, so scratch that off. I don't think Roselawn applies for OCIF funding. Scratch that off. The Elm Street water main, scratch that off because that's already funded. So we're down to items 5 and 6, and I know how busy we are, and we haven't even got the Op Center going, and we haven't even got the CSO design, EA, yada, yada, yada done. But if they're going to ramp up their funding allowance, and I know that the feds are going to come out too, I hate to put this on both you guys. Are we going to give consideration to watch what's coming down the pipe? I know we got a lot on our plate. I know engineering has an extreme amount on their plate now, and we're piling it on again, so I know you got a lot going forward. But are we keeping an eye out for 5 and 6 is the east side site servicing, and item that's near and dear to my heart is the downtown CIP, because our storm sewer down Clarence Street is failing, and we've got basements that are flooding. We've got Harry's department that's yelling at us for servicing on West Street for canal days, because we're running into issues over there. Be nice to get that done. Some other things too. So if and when funding comes through, I'll say both levels.
One of them's already
Do you want to?
shovel ready.
We got one shovel ready.
Yep.
We're going to look to bite off something else as well. I'll put that through to Peter and Ron.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Elliott. The answer is always yes, absolutely. I think it's very important. The Exercise Council went through in December to establish the priorities. It's very important for staff to have that guideline, and it was certainly beneficial in looking at the criteria for the funding. We've had some discussions with the new MP and very promising discussions in terms of what might be coming down the pike in federal funding as well, which we haven't seen really since the Ballet Center was built. Under the OCF criteria, and unless that changes, it's somewhat restrictive in terms of what you can apply for, and we've had that discussion about the downtown CIP. So hopefully there's a little bit of flexibility into any future funding programs that come down. We have these projects ready. The employment lands will be ready. The downtown CIP is shovel ready. So certainly these programs are available. So if the criteria matches, what we've always done is come back to council with a report and say, this is it. Do you recommend that we go ahead and apply for this funding? We've done this in every case, and council's always had that opportunity to say yay or nay to the funding. So we certainly do that. We scrutinize everything that comes through. I saw the OGRA news breaks that come through at 6 o'clock today. Looks like there's a lot of money for connecting links. We don't have connecting links, so that's fine. We've maxed out on the OCIF on 2 previous projects now, which is great. So anything else coming through, we'll definitely take a look at it, because we now have the priority list from council on what we want to fund. So I think we're well positioned to do that.
Thanks, Ron. One other quick thing, and it dawned on me after we passed the items that weren't pulled. I really hate doing this because of my proximity to the clerk. But on the CFO or the CSO on the nickel area, it's passed, no discussion. But the recommendation is to enter into an agreement, which is fine, sign all the documents. Doesn't say how we want to fund it. So
If it's passed, then.
it's passed, but there was options on funding, and that wasn't discussed. So well, you can't. You got to fund it. How are we going to pick up our share? It's pretty public. It's pretty public on where money's coming from. It's a public document, but it says on, financial options for funding of the project under the OCIF contribution agreement, funding options. We approved the project. Are we going to have another report come back on funding options? Is that what you want to do, or?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, 2 things can be done. Yes, the report did provide some funding options, and council can provide that direction this evening, or the report can come back at a later time. Obviously, when a debenture, majority of that project, the initial application was that we would be debenturing that. There's a couple options that could reduce that debenture amount. And normally what I do in debenturing any of the projects, I'll be bringing forward a full report to council on all of the projects that we have to debenture this year. And this would be included in that, and council can determine at that time if they want to put other funding towards this project or want to debenture it in full, or if council has an inkling tonight that they want to make that decision, and then we know going forward with the province as to what our funding is going to be for this particular project, whether it's going to be $5.5 million debenture or $3.5 million debenture, whatever that may be, and the use of other funds for this particular project. But ultimately, there'll be a report coming to council later this year on all the projects that need to be debentured, and it'll give council then an update of all of the what our debt capacity is and so on. So right now we are at, we're fine on our debt capacity with regard to this project and a couple of the other future projects that we know are coming forward that we've discussed at budget. So I'll leave that.
Yep, no, thanks, Peter. And it just, as you were answering, maybe it would be prudent for this specific one, because we haven't done the EA. We got a lot of work to do going forward before this even becomes shovel-ready and we go to tender or anything like that. Would it be better off to wait to see what numbers come back before we try to decide how we want to fund it? Or are we kind of pretty sure the numbers that have been quoted in the item are going to be pretty solid numbers?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, we need, obviously,
Sorry, Mr. Hanson, but this item wasn't even lifted for discussion, so I really don't think we should be discussing it. That's okay, thank you. That's just how I feel. Unless other council members have another act. It wasn't lifted, so we should not be discussing it.
And that's why I was asking,
Okay.
There seemed like there was options in it. That it was passed, but
Madam Clerk, can
we didn't
have
fulfill. But that's fine. No, that's okay.
Is that correct? Thank you. I just want to ask her opinion. Thank you. The next is staff responses to previous councillors' inquiries. Do we have any staff that wish to address something that a councillor asked them previously? No? Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Now we're going to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. And we have item 1, but Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would ask that for leave of council, if we could ask that we discuss item 3, as I'm sure that one of the attendees in council chambers would probably like to get that over with and go home, if council's good with that.
Is council okay with that? All in favor? Yeah. All in favor? Thank you. Joanne Percioli, if you could come to the podium and just give us your whys.
Let me go through.
Yes, so
everything.
Councillor Elliott, if you would read.
Item 3, Chief Administrative Officer, Health Services Division Report number 2016-22, subject, provincial policy restricting the number of family physicians who can join family health organizations.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Kenny, councillors, thank you for jumping me up the queue a little bit. This is a really important resolution that we're looking at here, and there is a little bit of background that council needs to be aware of as we move forward with primary care reform. So as you've all probably read in the news, all of primary care and all of the primary care providers, all of the physicians are now going to be accountable to the LHIN. So everything that they do is now going to be dealt with the LHIN. Now, in April, a group of our physicians received the approval from province to become a group practice. They're a group of 3 physicians, and they were approved to be a practice of 7 physicians. 1 month later, the province decided that they would name communities that would be communities in need of physicians, and those would be the only communities allowed to recruit to these group practices. Unfortunately, Port Colborne was not on the list of a community in need. So 1 month, we were approved to add 4 physicians. The next month, we were told we are not a community in need. In response to that, in October, we sent a letter to the Honourable Health Minister, Dr. Eric Hoskins, and have yet to receive a response as to what the process was to determine why a community was in need and who would be eligible to recruit physicians. In that time since, we've had several physicians who would like to be recruited to Port Colborne. They're amazing young family physicians who would be a fantastic fit for this group of physicians. So I urge you to strongly consider supporting this resolution, that we continue to urge the ministry to reverse their May decision, and that we continue to support our physicians with their primary care reform. I'll take any
Thank you,
questions.
Joanne. Any questions about that? Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Joanne. Joanne, it really is frustrating. I guess many of us have been on the Physician Recruitment Committee for a number of years, where we've struggled when we were, we had the spots, we couldn't get physicians to fill them. Now we got physicians that want to come here, and the government's pulled the spots away from us. It is, I can imagine you're just beside yourself because, like you say, these physicians that want to come are cream of the crop. We want these people to be here. Our community will be much worse off if we don't get them. And, I certainly would suggest council support this. It just makes so much sense, and we're almost blindsided on this one, in a way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bodnar. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The recommendation is that we just support the resolution of the town of Fort Erie, which is fine and dandy. We're supporting their resolution. Should we give something more teeth and draft another letter? Maybe not so nice and polite and say, we already sent you one letter and we haven't got a response. Excuse me, but we'd like to know why, and we've got interest and we've got room in a family health team that you already allowed us to create prior to denying us to fill the spots. So just supporting the town of Fort Erie, their resolution, to me doesn't sound like it's enough. Maybe we should branch out on our own and fire something off to them. So your comments?
Sure, through you, Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Elliott. I absolutely agree. And actually, we do have a meeting set up with the LHIN. We also have a meeting, we have had several meetings with Public Health, with Dr. Yeager, and also with Regional Council, and with the LHIN and the Niagara Health System, because we need all of them to understand that it's a system of care now. So it's primary care, specialist care, emergency care. It's a system of care. So it all goes together. So we need them to be in agreement. This resolution supports Fort Erie. Had a letter sent to Dr. Mike Toth, who is the Chief Officer of the Ontario Medical Association. So we would like to support their efforts with what has already gone into Dr. Toth. And we've already sent a letter to Dr. Hoskins. But we can certainly, absolutely, resend further stern directives with your blessings.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Chair. Deputy Mayor, I should say. I fully agree with what Councillor Elliott has stated. One of the interesting factors in looking at all the information that I've been able to gather is that They have not identified the fact that our doctor base is aging here in Port, and aging considerably. And which means that who knows when, but maybe very soon, we're going to be in need of 5 or 6 doctors, but we're still not in need, so we can't go get any. Like, there's something wrong there. And I agree with Councillor Elliott. We absolutely need to sort of, how can I put it? And I'm trying to put it so that it isn't, shit or get off the pot type thing. Like, let's get moving here and let's tell them where it's at and come and meet with us or do something about it. Like, we can't do it next year and we can't do it the year after. We've got to do it now. It's got to be done now. And it's critical that they understand that. And critical that they understand that we need their support to be able to continue. Okay? And whatever letter we write, it's got to be a strong letter like that. It's as simple as that. Is smarten up. You know? As my wife says, I'll hit you in the back of the head so you don't have any more hair in the back of your head anymore. You know, like, let's smarten up.
Thank you, Councillor Sett. Councillor Butters, you wanted to add a comment?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Question for you, Joanne. You mentioned you have meetings set up with other bodies in Niagara. So I just was wondering, though, what, if any, is the LHIN's position on this?
They have through you, Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Butters, the LHIN does have a vested interest in this issue because primary care is reforming. So, so the reporting structure is changing of the physicians, so they do have a vested interest. And as this round of residents is graduating in May, and they're looking for places to practice, I do believe that a lot of pressure is going to be on the LHIN to act. And I think that I mean, the ministry basically sent us just something that somebody created. It didn't even speak specifically to the issue that we asked about. So, and I mean, when we question and constantly question the process, we then question the LHIN. And I think we continue to question those bodies of what their process was and to get that reversed for us. We have been assured that this is being revisited in April. I don't know if that's just to, because I continually to call. I'm not sure if that's just to get me off the phone or perhaps.
Well, like this, Dr. Hoskins, the minister, from what I gather, is actually putting even more responsibility onto the LHINs, is shifting more and more duty to them and away from direct ministry involvement. To me, if he has that much faith in the LHINs, then our best bet would be through the LHIN to reverse this, for them to send that strong message back to the minister, and have their voices join the rest of ours in this endeavor, because like I just wonder sometimes what the hell they're doing in Toronto and why they do what they do. Like, I just don't get it at all. And the LHINs is supposed to represent, a catchment area of that includes us. So to me, if anybody should have the minister's ear, it should be the bloody LHINs of this area. But that's just me. Thanks, Joanne, for all your hard work.
Sure.
Thanks, Joanne. So I'll go back to Councillor Elliott. Councillor Elliott, you've made the suggestion that we definitely support this from Fort Erie, but we also send a letter of our own, and I think that's great too. But I need someone, if you're going to make that motion, if you'd make that motion, and I'll get a seconder to that if everybody's in favor of that. So, Councillor?
I'll make the motion, and I'll leave it up to Joanne to direct it to where you think it would have the most effect, whether you want to send it to the LHIN or if you want to send it directly to Queen's Park. I don't know if Minister Hoskins will shelve this one too, or if it would have more impact to send it to the Lynn and ask for their support with the letter, and then they can send it up and say, hey, look, they've really built a case on why they need this endorsement, and they need the support of the province as well. So I'll leave it up to you to decide where it's going to have more impact, and then take it from there.
Thank you. Can I have a second for that, Councillor Doucette? And just a second. All in favor of that? Any against? Yes, yes. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. And yes, I would just suggest too that Joanne, that you mentioned that this was brought up at a council meeting and the council fully endorsed this as a means of them having a second look at our community and making sure. Okay, so everybody was all in favor of that? We had a motion, seconder. Any opposed? That's good. Thank you, that was carried. Thank you, Joanne, for waiting. That's great. Thank you. Next is item number 1, and I believe it was Councillor Main that pulled that. So after you made the recommendation, I suggest that we asked Mrs. Hanson, who's been patiently waiting as well, to give us a report, and then you can ask your questions. Okay, thank you.
Planning and Development Report number 2016-14, subject proposed lot maintenance bylaw.
Mover is John, second. And then Sherry, it's up to you now. If you could give us a little background.
Sorry, I'm used to standing from before. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This new lot maintenance bylaw that has been developed will be able to give quicker enforcement and increase in our closure rates. We have good closure rates now, but the quicker enforcement will be greatly increased. Some of the highlights of the proposed bylaw are the grass and weeds height is reduced from 8 inches to 6 inches, or 20 centimeters to 15 centimeters. Those grasses and weeds apply to all properties within the city of Port Colborne and only exclude properties zoned agricultural and environmentally protection. It used to be only grasses and weeds in the urbanized area, and the implemented request from Ward 4 councillors was to include the Ward 4 residential properties under the new bylaw instead of using it through property standards. We implemented the maintenance of pool water so it cannot be a health hazard or a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Implemented the requirement to fill in any excavation unless it is enclosed by a barrier. The implementation, the authority to take immediate action to eliminate the danger of ponding of water exceeding 30 centimeters and swimming pools that are water that is not maintained. Implement refuse to clear lands in an expeditious manner. Implemented and outlined 7 different methods of service set out in section 5.9 of the proposed bylaw. We had previously had some questions about how service was dealt to an individual. One was a landlord, so that was put in there so that we can cover those areas. Outlined 7 different time frames for service, so that it's a clear indication of what type of service was delivered and what that time frame actually is, so there's no miscommunication on service. That's set out in section 5.10 of the bylaw. A new work order was clearly outlining the work required and the time frame, and that is set out in Schedule A of the proposed bylaw. Implementing fees and re-inspections, minimum maintenance, administration and mailing. The re-inspection fee is payable where the violation still exists, and that's set out in Schedule B of the proposed bylaw. And the implementation of timeframes for work to be completed ranging from 2 to 7 days, depending on the infraction, and that's set out in Schedule C of the proposed bylaw. The current process we use now is the property standards process, and from the chart that you have attached to the report, you can see that from day 1 to approximately day 85 would go through, and it would take about 3 months to deal with the issue, and it could be in a court action, and the property still may not get cleaned up, so it is a long process, and there are guidelines with regards to the Building Code Act, having an appeal process, to have that for the cleanup. Now, the new lot maintenance process will run from 1 to 21 days. When we receive the complaint, we'll check out the inspection, make sure that there's no exemptions for that. We will fill out the appropriate paper or computer work and notify the property owner. We'll do a reinspection to verify that the compliance is met. And the refuse contract, which just closed today, we will have another report coming forward with a contractor to be able to do that work. So we will no longer have to get 2 quotes to do the cleanup, which was a delay in the actual cleanup time because we had to obtain quotes from contractors to move forward. So that's going to be an improvement as well. And then we would add the cost of taxes. So the reduction from approximately 3 months has then been reduced now to about 3 weeks. And then in sections 5.1 and 5.2, you can see that the delivery service, so you would have personal delivery or courier by registered mail, and there's certain categories of what is deemed served. So that it's very clear, under section 5.2, I have scheduled out exactly what, how many days is actually deemed served. So if you have by registered mail, it's 5 days deemed served. So if you have it by express post, then it's been deemed served the next business day. So depending on how service is met, whether it's a vacant lot or a property that is an owner from the USA or a corporation, we will determine what is the appropriate way to provide the service, and then we have how much it's deemed, and that is added on to the days in which the cleanup is. Then you can see in Schedule B and in C the fees and costs for that. So in Schedule B, you can see that there's a reinspection fee of $95, a minimum maintenance fee of $170. So even if it's 1 bag of garbage and we have to go there and clean it up, the minimum fee to go do that would be $170. And then you'd have $95 as a reinspection fee, and that's only payable where the violation still exists. And there's a mailing fee of $25. The cost for mailing has gone up considerable, especially when we're trying to do registered mail to the United States. We have to go and pay a lot of money to do that, as well as the time frames to complete the work. So to remove refuse, it's you get 7 days to remove that. To remove open household garbage, so garbage that's strewn across the lawn, 7 days. To clear your grass over 15 centimeters, it'll still be the 3 days, as we previously had in our previous grass bylaw, but it's now reduced from 15 to 20 centimeters to 15. To remove water 30 centimeters, you get 2 days to do that. To maintain your swimming pool water, you get 5 days to do that. And to expose the excavation, you get 2 days to do that. And any other miscellaneous items in there would be 5 days. So we've tightened up the actual time frames and clearly set out how those are going to be dealt with, along with the maintenance and having a contractor put in place so we can get quicker cleanup.
Thank you. Councillor Main, you're the first on. If you have some questions about that.
Yes, I had a pretty good time reading this over, and I could drive around my property or in my neighborhood and find a whole bunch of people who aren't in compliance, but that's another story. I like the idea of it going from 85 days to 21 days. I think it gives us a little bit more clout and a little bit more meaning in how soon we get this stuff done. I mean, and I know that you don't like to have it go for 85 days. It's just gets to be an anchor around your neck, and that's the part I like. But there's one other thing, and I got to get a handle on it, where it says the exemption's a hobby vehicle, and I know it's in the describes a hobby vehicle that somebody's working on and rebuilding or whatever. But how many hobby vehicles are you allowed in your yard at one time? I don't see a number there. It says vehicle or vehicles. Is there that part of the bylaw that you're only allowed so many if you're working on one?
Sherry, if you could answer that, that'd be great.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Main. There is no number set in the bylaw regarding that, as there is no number set for how many vehicles you're allowed to have in your driveway that are licensed vehicles. Hobby vehicles are vehicles such as stock cars that don't require a license. A hobby vehicle, as you can see here, the hobby vehicle means a vehicle that is actively being repaired or restored as a hobby vehicle for the owner or occupant of the property. A race car, a vehicle that is special by nature and is not routinely used or licensed but is intended to show or display on occasion. So a hobby vehicle isn't a derelict vehicle or a piece of junk. A hobby vehicle would be something of a stock car or historical vehicle, a vehicle that you're fixing up for a demolition derby, that type of thing. But we have no number set in the bylaw for how many you can have.
Thank you, through Deputy Mayor, to Sherry. So, having said that, your hobby vehicle would have to have some type of appraised value. Like you said, how would you justify whether it's junk or whether it's got value? It would have to have some type of appraised value, would it not?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Main. Yes, a hobby vehicle would have to have, they would have to prove to us that it is a hobby vehicle. So again, we have a few people that deal with racing, and they race at our speedway here and have vehicles. So they'll have a stock car on a trailer, and that it goes in and out every week. We will have vehicles that people are using to deal with demolition derbies or that. And again, normally when we have those types of vehicles, there's usually only one, maybe two, because they have some that they're having a spare car. But just because they're allowed to have a hobby vehicle doesn't preclude them from keeping the rest of the debris or junk or disused material strewn through their yard. It's just allowing the hobby vehicle to be allowed to be there.
Thank you.
Councillor Doucette? Councillor Body?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. First of all, on behalf of Councillor Desmarais, she was really happy with this. She called me and mentioned it to me, and she said, I can't be there, can you tell her? She's really happy with it, and so am I. It has definitely shortened the time that they have to comply with, and that's critical. I've got 3 on the go right now that I can call in and say, let's use that on them right now. One of the concerns I had was similar to Councillor Main. If you have a hobby vehicle and you're using other cars as parts, that's a concern I have. Is you may have someone that's saying, well, that's my car, that's a hobby car, I'm rebuilding it, and I'm using all these other cars parts. Then what do we do? And we have to be careful with that, but maybe you can describe it. Maybe you know better than I what can be done, but how is that going to be dealt with? Because I can guarantee you at least 2 in my area that'll tell you exactly that. Through you, Madam.
Through Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Doucette. Under the zoning bylaw, you cannot have a scrapyard or a wrecking yard, which therefore you cannot have cars to use as parts for and tear them apart and use them. So they can have parts that they can purchase, but they can't have actual cars to strip and then use for those car parts. If they want to do that, they're going to have to do it off property. They can only have the hobby vehicle there, not extra vehicles to be used.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Body? Councillor Body?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Sherry. Sherry, is this still on a complaint basis?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Bodner. We just received our second officer today. Once this bylaw is passed, once I get the next report with regards to refuse cleanup, and the spring season starts, I would like to move forward and do this in somewhat of a proactive approach so that we can have a quicker cleanup. It's going to take us less time now because we're not spending 90 days on one complaint, that we can get a couple of complaints done because it's a shorter time frame, sending out a contractor, similar to what we're doing with the grass now. We get 10, 12 complaints in, we go and take some photos, send out their notice, and then turn around and send it to the contractor when there's no compliance. So I'm hoping that we can move forward and start moving with this bylaw to be one of our proactive projects.
So a recreational vehicle, could that include a boat that somebody's working on? I didn't see, I seen boats listed there, but it was more that you couldn't actually have that. On page 71, it mentions inoperative trailers or boats. But if I had an antique boat,
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. An inoperative machinery, trailers, or boats, when they are in a dilapidated or decayed state, they become debris and refuse, and they are no longer classified as a boat. They are classified as debris.
so, although I don't remember requesting this to be implemented in Ward 4, are you telling me that Ward 4 was exempt from these bylaws on grass cutting and that until this new one came in?
Through Deputy Mayor Kenny to Councillor Bodner. Previously, under the grass bylaw, it was only grass that was higher than 8 inches in an urbanized area. All other areas were dealt with, such as the rural area, agricultural areas, were dealt with under the property standards bylaw. So it went through the 85-day process. It was a while back that you requested that the grass be included so that all the grass for at a house or a residential area would be included and not have to go through the long process, that it would be the quicker process under the grass bylaw. So instead of incorporating and creating a new or putting an amendment to the grass bylaw, I incorporated it into the lot bylaw and created a new bylaw to have everything under one umbrella.
Okay, so what I'm worried about is somebody with there's some large residential lots out there. I can think of the gentleman sitting beside you that has one. And although he keeps his grass cut very well, there's people that can have 12 acres. The grass around the house is cut quite nice, but, the rest is a naturalized area for, the animals and whatever else might want to use it. I just don't want to see somebody complaining about their neighbor that has, 8 acres of naturalized stuff. So is that somehow in there? And how would we deal with that if we're not going to go there and tell them they got to keep that 8 acres cut to 6 inches or whatever?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bodner, I do have in the bylaw, and I do describe naturalized areas, perennial gardens, wildflower areas, and those types of areas would be exempt. It is just the grass that around the residential area, as you would for a yard in an urbanized area. But there are areas of vegetation that is classified as naturalized area that would be exempt from that.
Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Sherry. Just real quick. Schedule C, remove refuse, remove open household garbage. And you get more time to do those than to get rid of that, clean up that stuff than to clean up anything else, which I'm trying to figure out why. To me, refuse and open household garbage means just that trash, crap, stuff that should be in your garbage can, picked up weekly, and we're giving them longer to clean up that scrap than anything else, which on a real hot week in the summertime might not smell too well. Especially like you said, if there's things strewn all over the yard and it's garbage. Like, I'm thinking, when you say refuse and you say household garbage, I'm thinking garbage. So just if you can tell me why.
Through Deputy Mayor Kenny to Councillor Elliott. I went over this with legal to describe on the types of issues that we would have, and I originally had 5 days, and through some case law and some other issues, legal, we've changed it to 7 days, and I can tell you the difference. Domestic waste can be your household garbage that's in a bag, but it also can be refuse. When you got the difference between the two, you're talking about construction material, demolition material, refrigerators, freezers, furnace parts, pipes, unlicensed motor vehicles, rubble, debris, indoor furniture that's outdoors. That type of thing is classified as refuse. Difference between your actual household garbage that would actually stink and like you have tires or car parts and that type of thing. So that's the difference. But because we have a cycle system where your garbage is picked up weekly, you have to give that 1 week time.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone? I just want to add mine in that I'm very happy to see the shortened time frame. I think that's bothered a lot of us. And the fines for going back, I was really happy about that too, because it is certainly a way to get people to clean up. I did want to ask the one question about the car though. I just wondered if we should tighten that up as a council and say it's one car and one car only. I know that they do, especially in the summertime. And is there a restriction in time? I should ask you that as well for these, because I know that's when they work on these cars, and we have had complaints from neighbors who say they rev up the motor and the fumes go into their windows, and we've had that complaint. So I just wondered if we should maybe consider that, council, to shorten that up so that it is only one car they're allowed to work on. I know you said that they have to get parts for that vehicle. They would have to disassemble another car someplace else and bring those parts there. But I just want to make sure we're not stuck with somebody having a vehicle, a boat, and half a dozen other things, and they say they're working on them because they're hobby vehicles. I had just a little bit of concern about that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kenny, one of the considerations that we looked at was putting quantities on things, and because we only have a handful that I know of that I've been dealing with, I know one gentleman has 3, another one has 2, but the majority have one vehicle. I would suggest that we let this play out for 3 or 4 months to see if there is a real need to tighten it up a little bit more. In all honesty, I believe I've dealt with a couple of them, and I've only had one with 3 and one with 2. The majority of them have one vehicle that they use, that they trailer and bring back and forth.
And just the last question, is there a time frame, or do we have like months for a time frame they can do that? Like not all, not all winter, I guess. I guess they work on these mostly in the spring and the summer or fall.
Most property enthusiasts or mechanics, they have a heated garage. They will work on it inside their garage. The noise bylaw does have restrictions on times for like revving of a vehicle and that type of thing. Use of power tools, but not in a time frame as month-wise, just in hourly time frame.
Thank you. Any other questions? We've had a mover and a seconder, all in favor. Any opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Councillor Bodnar, I believe you are next. Item 6.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Planning and Development Report number 2016-19. Subject, Ontario Municipal Board Appeal of Committee of Adjustment Decision A16-15-PC 3786 Highway 3.
Seconder to that, Councillor Butters. Councillor Butters.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Aguilina, I guess. I agree with your report here that we shouldn't initiate the process to the Ontario Municipal Board. My question is, are we going to continue working with the person that is taking this to the OMB and the people that are trying to build this facility? Are we trying to broker any agreement, or have they asked for that or anything?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Bodnar. Right now, it's sitting with the OMB. I have not had any correspondence or contact with the appellant, nor have I had any contact with Pharmatica recently. The OMB will give direction as to what the city's involvement is. Typically, what they'll do is they'll have us contact the people that were involved in the application to notify them of the actual date. So our queue has to come from the OMB. If someone appeals and someone wants to defend, we have in our fee bylaw to have a subpoena to provide representation. So in this case, the applicant is Pharmatica. Well, actually, it's Mr. Hirsch. I am assuming that Pharmatica is going to then have me under summons. Our fee bylaw then requires them to have my time or any other staff's time. There's a fee for that. I'm going to assume that that's what they'll do, but they may actually come to some sort of mediation because the appellant said that he would like to have mediation, or they would like to have mediation. So depending upon how this all plays out, once the OMB reaches out to the appellant and the property owner, there may be a mediation. I may be involved, I may not be involved. It depends on how they want to proceed, both parties. So to answer your question, no, I've not reached out yet to anybody because I'm waiting for the OMB to give me direction.
And I guess that's fine, because I just knew that there was some talk of mediation early on. So obviously you're open to that if you get the call or, or somebody gives you that. So I just wanted to see where that process was. So I'm fine with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bosler. So we've had a mover and a seconder. Any more questions to this? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through to Dan. The appeal was for the Committee of Adjustments decision on the setbacks, right?
The variance application dealt with setbacks, dealt with lot area, it dealt with many factors of council's approval of medical marijuana production facilities. So the variance was for lot area and for the setback. That's what his appeal was. Obviously, his appeal was that he didn't want that facility there. And there was many reasons he gave why it shouldn't be there. So, but the Committee of Adjustments decision was for the setback and lot area.
And lot area. So
Correct.
so those two decisions are what the appeal is against, right?
Correct. It's the appeal of the Committee of Adjustments decision for the matter that was before them under that application. So the Committee of Adjustments decision was to deal with those two provisions under the zoning bylaw.
Right.
Correct.
So that's what he's.
Correct.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how you mitigate that through. You can't change the lot area and you can't change the setbacks. I'm just trying to figure out.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, without speaking for the appellant, my belief reading his summary to the board was more or less opposed to the actual facility being on that property.
Yeah, okay.
And some of the reasons that were cited were, impact on well water and things of that nature. Property value.
Okay.
crime.
Thank you. Okay, once again, a mover and a seconder, so all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Bodnar, you're up next with item number 8.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to, I guess it's Dan again. Planning and Development Report number 2016-16, subject, Animal Control and Municipal Pound Services Contract Renewal.
Councillor?
Thank you. Through you to Dan. Dan, in the verbiage here, and I'm sorry I don't have the page wrote down where it is, but it talks about this will be in effect for all of Port Colborne. And my question is, does that really mean all of Port Colborne? And I'll ask you whether it means the fire lanes in Port Colborne.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Bodnar, it means all of Port Colborne, including the properties along the fire lanes. Every property in the city of Port Colborne.
Okay, so the reason I asked that was I had occasion to call about a fire lane situation, and they were very hesitant to come. This was not last year, the year before. They made all kinds of excuses before I mentioned that I was pretty sure that they were to do the fire lanes, and I'm talking about the Humane Society. So it is well understood by them and by us that, you know, they don't treat fire lanes like private property or anything. If they get a call, it'd be like going to any other part of the city.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Bodnar, that's absolutely correct. They should be aware of that, and if they're not, you let me know, because we deal directly with them. They're under contract with us, and it's for the entire municipality.
Have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? No opposed? That was unanimously carried. Thank you. Any notices of motion? No notices of motion. Move for adjournment. Councillor Danch, seconded by Councillor Main. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the regular meeting of council and any introduction of addendum items. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, none this evening.
Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Councillor Butters, Councillor Bodnar, thank you. All in favor? Disclosures of interest. Any councillors? Thank you. Adoption of minutes. I need a mover and seconder for the special meeting of council held on January 25th. Mover, Councillor Butters, seconder by Councillor Doucette. Special meeting of council held on, is that the same thing, Madam Clerk? Sorry. Okay, special, okay. So, yeah, we're going to do them all together then. Special meeting of council for January 25th. Special meeting of council 0216 held on January 25th. And regular meeting of council on 0316 held January 25th. Mover was Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Doucette. All in favor? Any opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Are there any items requiring separate discussion? No items? Okay. Need a mover for that? No. The next. For, item 7? Okay. So for item 7, I need approval of items not requiring separate discussion. A mover, Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Butters. All in favor? That would be carried. Thank you. Proclamations, there are none, but we do have several minutes of boards and commissions and committees. I will read them all and we'll vote for them en bloc. One is meetings of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum Board of Management meeting on November the 17th. Minutes of the Port Colborne Transit Advisory Committee held on July 22nd. Meeting of the Port Colborne Public Library Board of December the 8th, 2015. And meeting of the minutes, of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting of October 21st and November the 18th, 2015. Mover, Councillor Doucette, seconder, Councillor Butters. All in favor? That would be carried. Thank you. Okay. This is just a consideration of bylaws.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 63290916 being a bylaw to provide for the maintenance of property and land, and to repeal bylaw 45195004. Bylaw 63301016 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contribution agreement with the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. Bylaw 63311116 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 11509781, respecting lands legally described as part lots 7 and 8, concession 5, more particularly described as parts 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 on Plan 59R 1880, municipally known as 3894 Forks Road. Bylaw 63321216 being a bylaw to appoint Heather Stones as a municipal law enforcement officer, and to repeal bylaw 6155-12114 and all amendments thereto. Bylaw 63331316 being a bylaw to enter into a contract agreement with the Welland District SPCA regarding animal control and municipal pound services. And finally, bylaw 63341416 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its special and regular meetings of February 22nd, 2016.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Danch. All in favor? And that would be carried. Now we need council will now go into closed session. Need a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Danch, Councillor Doucette, that council now do proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Community and Corporate Services, Clerk's Division, subject appointment of boards and committees, Economic Development Advisory Committee, and the Grant Policy Committee pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239/2B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All in favor of that? Okay, thank you. Disclosures of interest? None. And do we motion that to rise? Okay. Motion to rise with report, right? Thank you. Adjournment of council meeting. Councillor Danch. Okay, all right, thanks.